All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson McKay.
And today's guest is Spencer Hoffman Edminster. Today's topic is My Wild Backyard, uncovering nature's hidden world. Welcome to My Wild Backyard, where Spencer explores the secret lives of the tiny creatures living all around us, from the hidden corners of your yard to the most overlooked spaces in your home. An entire world of fascinating insects and spiders is waiting to be discovered. Join biologist Spencer Hoffman from North Carolina as he takes you on wild adventures to reveal the strange and incredible creatures that share our planet. Whether it's up-close encounters with amazing arachnids or deep dives into the world of bugs, snakes, and so much more, My Wild Backyard brings you nature like you've never seen before. Subscribe to his YouTube and let Spencer show you just how wild your backyard really is. And in this video, you will learn a lot about wildlife and also about creating a career on YouTube and how to make videos and so much more. This one is a real deep dive and masterclass on building a YouTube channel based on your passions and a channel that will change your life as much as the wonders you'll find in your backyard. And now, let's get to the interview. Thank you so much for coming on. It's an absolute joy to have somebody whose videos I just watch as a guilty pleasure, because so many people cannot understand the appeal of insects till you start watching your videos. But for people who maybe don't recognize your name and they should be ashamed, how would you describe who you are and what you're well known for?
Well, I'm currently well known for making videos on like insects and spiders on the internet. My name's Spencer Hoffman. I was classically trained as a biologist at the University of North Carolina, but I was a pre-med student, hated it. And I've always been, so I'm known for the spider videos, but I've always been a big storyteller. I've loved, you name a medium, I've probably messed with it. I've messed with music. I've messed with video game development. I have messed with creative writing, stop motion, the whole 9 yards. And I would say that I am a creator who is just really passionate about wildlife, and I want to tell the stories about really weird, really obscure, and sometimes even really scary animals to show people how reality is oftentimes a lot weirder than fiction. And that's been kind of the thesis behind the channel, and something that I almost have to like revisit and like, kind of recenter myself from time to time just to make sure that I'm doing what I set out to do, if that makes sense.
No, I love it. I mean, that's how I describe my dating life. It's weirder than fiction. I mean, something I love about your show is how deep and sort of passionate and analytical about life you are. You just go into things, you truly love what you do, but people have called you the Steve Irwin of this generation. What was the sort of the inspiration for you for educating and working with animals? Did it come from your pre-med days and seeing the damage that it could do in the body?
No, it really came from Steve Irwin, actually. So I've been into insects, specifically insects, for about as long as I can remember. Like, I think one of my earliest memories is catching a big grasshopper in my backyard. I grew up in northern Illinois. There wasn't a whole lot of wildlife up there because it was just super, super developed. Everything is agricultural land or suburbs. And so a lot of the really like cool stuff like reptiles, amphibians is just gone. So insects were kind of the cool wildlife that I had around. And I mean, one of my earliest memories, I don't even know if I could speak at the time, but I was like super, super young, probably barely able to walk. And I remember finding this big grasshopper in my backyard and just being mind blown by it. And so my interest in wildlife actually predates my discovery of Steve Irwin. I remember watching The Croc Hunter as a little kid, and
Oh yeah.
that was something that kind of fostered and ignited the wildlife interest more than it initiated it, because it was, oh, here's a grown-up who's super passionate and everyone respects, who is teaching people about wildlife. And it kind of framed how I approached wildlife from there on out. So like in elementary school, I was the guy who'd catch bugs and teach people about them. That usually ended up in me getting beat up because people didn't care about that, but that's what I did. And then I want to say in high school, I discovered river monsters on Animal Planet as well. And around the same time, I started watching like Brave Wilderness on YouTube. And those were two things I'm like, okay, this is like what wildlife content looks like now, the more mysterious and scary. And I really liked that as a big science fiction fan, as a big fantasy fan. I really liked how River Monsters and Brave Wilderness spoke to that kind of imagination side of nature, how the creatures we share our planet with are scary and weird. And to me, it wasn't like a fear-inducing thing. It was, oh, this is really cool. I want to add my hat to the ring. So I kind of played with the idea of doing a YouTube channel, but it really started as a creative outlet in college. When I say that I hated pre-med, we can get into like the mental health side of that. Like it was, there's a very good reason why I'm not in the health field anymore. And I liked the biochemistry of it. I think chemistry is really fascinating, but that was something that I also got into in high school. College or university, I guess, was not my thing. I started the YouTube channel as a way to kind of creatively express myself. And it started as like, you've probably seen the old videos, the Can I Catch It series. That was just like, can I film videos? Can I do my best to get the best cinematography I can with the tools that I have? Can I film wildlife in my backyard? And can I tell stories about them? And it was sort of just kind of me getting my footing with making these kind of videos. I've been making videos since, God, how old was I when I first started? 9, maybe. I've been making videos since I was like 9. But never wildlife videos. It was always like gaming videos or stupid little skits with my friends or Lego stop motion animation with my brother. Like I was kind of all over the place. It was college where I'm like, let's actually do a proper go at YouTube, but as a creative outlet. Maybe it'll become like a side hustle or something. And I can, I think my initial pivot away from medicine, because like that's another whole can of worms too. It's a very detailed story, how I got into being a wildlife educator. But my first pivot away from pre-med was to do science education. Like I was going to be like a science teacher. And I thought, well, maybe I'll use the channel as like a side hustle to help me pay the bills, because you don't get paid anything as a teacher here in the US. And I could actually teach, which I prefer doing over medicine. I've always been like a natural teacher. Like one of my first YouTube channels that ever got any semblance of traction was a channel where I taught people how to program video games from their home laptop. So I've kind of had this natural, for lack of a better word, I've had this natural like draw towards whenever I get good at something or I find something really interesting, I have this just this like inert or not inert, this internal urge to share it with people and show people how things work. I don't know why that happens, just does. And so teaching science was like, okay, well, I'm good at science. I like science. I hate my science classes in university, but I know how I would teach these better. So I'll just teach science instead of doing medicine. And I'll run a YouTube channel on the side to make some extra income to help supplement a teaching career. And that's how I'll do things. And then COVID hit the year that I graduated from university. And I'm like, well, let's actually see if I can do this YouTube thing full time, because I didn't want to teach science through like the education system here online, because it was just horrible. And the infrastructure was just not there for like distance learning yet. And I really didn't feel like being the guinea pig of the distance learning industry. So I'm like, the world shut down. I've got nothing to lose. Let's just do YouTube and see what happens. And 2020, I got monetized on YouTube. It didn't quite pay me enough to pay all my bills, so I was like bartending and stuff on the side, something low maintenance to kind of just keep me on my feet. And then it was 2022 that the channel properly launched and started making enough money that I could actually go full time on it. And from there, that's basically what I've been able to do. But it's there's a lot of like twists and turns in there that if you want to explore more specifically, there's a lot of like points along the path where I'm like, this is kind of why I ended up here. But the long answer is, I would say Steve Irwin kind of fostered it, but I've always been into bugs since I was very, very young.
No, I love that because it, as you were talking, there were so many sort of the prompts or the inspirations that make you such a good YouTuber. I mean, it's almost like you were destined to become a YouTuber because you have this natural likability. You have this amazing way of telling a story. You have this affinity for and passion for the animals, but you have a great way of teaching it and bringing us into your excitement, into your passion for it. And your excitement makes us excited because I think you said in one of your lives that you make videos for the 6-year-old Spencer, the kid that you were.
Exactly.
Do you think that's why your videos are so successful? That you kind of you awaken our inner child, so to speak?
I would have to say yes. And so it's one of those things where like I could be like really humble and be like, oh, I don't know, but there's a lot of science that goes into that actually. So again, I as much as I'm a creator, I love being a scientist. I love being analytical and breaking like, why does this work? Why does YouTube work? Why do some YouTube channels work and some fail? And this is something that I talk ad nauseum with my colleagues on YouTube, like other wildlife creators that I collab with on a regular basis. Like they will hear me to the point where they're like, Spencer, shut up about target audience. But target audience is so huge. It is so huge. And I basically make videos for the 6-year-old version of myself, but more broadly, people who were also the 6-year-old version of me at some point in their life. And when I think about that psychological profile and I get really detailed on like, why does this person like animals? What is going out in the wilderness and seeing cool animals do for them? What does it do for me? It helps me sort of figure out, I mean, every decision, like what kind of music do I use? What kind of shots do I use? What kind of messaging do I use in the videos? It all comes down to what is that person going to really be like, whoa, that's so cool. My goal is to basically capture my viewers' imagination the same way that these animals have captured my imagination. So if I'm trying to elicit the same response that happened to me, I have to just kind of get really specific as to, well, why did it work for me? And if I can figure that out and reverse engineer that, then I can more or less infinitely crank out content that will do the same thing for somebody else.
Because that's what I love about your videos, like with all the comments of people saying, I used to be terrified of bugs and now I love them. Or, you've awakened my passion in this. Or my daughter's gone out and collecting spiders now and she used to scream and run from it. And I think you've opened up this whole world that we kind of just bypass because we don't really notice it. It's on our doorstep. And, there's ecosystems and these kind of symbiotic relationships with our house that these animals thrive in that we probably don't even notice unless you're really, you know what you're looking for. But to go from pre-med to YouTube, it's something I'm trying to do just now. I've just left the university role and I want to go and create this podcast and make a business and do all that kind of things. But understandably, parents can, shit the bed, so to speak, when it comes to leaving a safe area to going into something like this. How did you explain, or was there any pushback in that initially when you were leaving? And did you kind of, have they panicked when they saw videos of you pushing a spider to bite you? They must have been a bit scared initially.
Funny enough, my buddies on the channel, the Wildlife Brothers, they describe how their parents talk to them about what they do in the best way. It's the best way to articulate how my parents feel about what I do. Their parents say, we love what you did. We don't love what you're doing. They love that it's in the past and they're fine. They don't like hearing about, oh, we're going to go catch this snake, or we're going to catch this spider, or we're going to do this or that. Like my mom, we're about to go to Australia. And I'm bringing my brother with to help me with like filming and stuff.
Is that Max?
And no, Carter. He's been in, I think he made a cameo in like a really old video back in 2020 or 2021, I think. That first ever Copperhead video, he made a very brief cameo in, because I was having him help me catch it was the first venomous snake I'd ever caught, and I had to move it because it was right by the dog run, and like my parents, if they found it, they were going to kill it. So I'm like, well, this snake is in a really bad spot. I need to move it. Carter, can you help me? He looks kind of like me, but a little bit shorter, a lot more muscle, and red hair. He's actually in the most recent Vinegaroon video as well. He came with me to Arizona as like a test run for Australia last month. But I'm bringing him down. We're going to be in Australia for like 3 weeks, looking for some of the deadliest stuff in the world. And of course, my parents are like, "You're going to do what?" So there was a lot of pushback, and they're always nervous about what I'm doing. But the actual pivot from pre-med, so it was one of those things where pre-med was kind of a self-inflicted wound to myself. When I was in high school, I was really good at biology. I loved all the bio courses. I took a lot of like really advanced bio because I was super, super into just how life works. And because I was doing so well with those kind of classes, I'm like, well, what kind of career can I have that pays me well enough to live the lifestyle that I want and is in biology? And I'm like, well, medicine. So I just kind of like, well, I'm just gonna be pre-med then. And that was my thought process. And I actually stuck to it until my junior year of university. It was, believe it or not, it was a Spanish class that was the final bullet in that career path. Not organic chemistry, not any of the really nasty, like higher level bios, like anatomy and physiology. I didn't like it, but it didn't end my pre-med. Organic chemistry didn't end pre-med. It was a Spanish class. And my minor in college was Spanish for the health professions. And I remember my first actual like medical terminology in Spanish class after all the basic Spanish was over. Our first essay, we had to describe our future career in 300 words or less. And the spirit of the activity was actually to just use vocab we had learned in that unit of the class. But the way I write essays is I have to kind of put myself in, almost like putting myself in character for writing. But it's like, I have to put myself into what I'm going to say, and I have to like actually envision it. So like, I was the kind of guy where I would write my essays. It could be a 1,500 word essay, and I could write it in 30 minutes the night before it's due in English or Spanish for my literature classes, and I could get an A. Because that's just how I would just kind of get myself in the zone, crank it out, and then do a little bit of fine tuning on structure, and then it was done. This 300 word essay, I was sitting there staring at a blank Word file for like 6 hours. I just couldn't get in the zone to write it. And I realized that it's because I couldn't picture myself in the career at all. So cue a 3 a.m. identity crisis. My mom was a lot more understanding of me dropping pre-med than my dad, because I think my dad had kind of gotten in his head. He's like, we're gonna have a doctor in the family. That's gonna be really cool. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I can't do it. It's not gonna be good. Because the first 3 years of college too were it was a brutal battle with mental health too. It just like, it wasn't that the work was necessarily harder or more work than high school. It was that now that I'm paying for it, it felt really pointless and soulless. And I just couldn't bring myself to be engaged with the material. And as a result, my grades suffered, my interest in the material suffered, and I couldn't do it pretty much. And so I'm like, well, it's too late to change my major. I have to stick to biology. So my options were drop out or become a teacher. And I'm like, well, I'm 3 years in. Dropping out seems like kind of a waste of time. Like, I've already put so much time into school. I might as well get a degree out of it. And so I pivoted to education. And I really enjoyed the like learning the psychology of education and learning like how to one of the things I still use in my videos to this day is like we call it scaffolding. So it's, here's a detailed concept you're trying to teach somebody. Here's context they need to be able to understand this. And even when I'm teaching storytelling, it's the same thing with storytelling. If you have a certain emotional payoff that you want people to have at the end of a story, you kind of need to have context that makes that emotional payoff happen. So I when I'm talking with my buddies on YouTube, I'm like, we need to have scaffolding for this thing in your video. So when I'm, talking with my buddy Jack from Jack's World Wildlife, or the brothers from the Wildlife Brothers, we'll discuss different video concepts, and here's what we want to have accomplished in this video. I'm like, okay, if this is what the goal is, then you need this, this, and this to make sure that this goal actually like hits the way it should hit. But yeah, that was the pivot away from pre-med. My parents were skeptical, very skeptical, especially when I said I was going to supplement my income with YouTube. They're like, what? Because it wasn't until, for the most of my life too, I thought YouTube was just luck. They're like, what? YouTube? Like, you can't make money on there. How do you make money on there? It was my freshman year of college, actually, that I learned that YouTube could actually be a career opportunity. And I briefly dated this girl my freshman year. And I still kind of picture this one little conversation we had. It was kind of the light in the, like, freshman year was a very dark time for me. But this one conversation I had with this one girl that I dated briefly, it was kind of the light that kept me going. And so when I met her, I knew she was like really good with cameras. And as someone who loves technology and loves being like creative, I just was like curious, like, how did you get so good with the camera? And she was like, oh, I used to have this YouTube channel way back in the day. And I'm like, oh, how many subscribers did you have? And she's like, well, I had about 200,000. I'm like, 200,000? And apparently she had collabed with like some of the OG like big entertainment creators like Gen X Pen and stuff. But she deleted her channel because of her mental health. Like, where pre-med was bad for me, YouTube was bad for her. And so she left. But she told me that, yeah, when if you grow a decent size audience, you can actually make a pretty decent living off of YouTube. And I'm like, tell me more. It was just this weird moment where I was like, what do you mean you can make money on YouTube? Because it was like this escape route suddenly opened up. Because I knew even freshman year that I didn't really want to be a doctor. But I had conditioned myself for so long to be one that my identity wasn't ready to let go. But it was this little escape ramp that was opening up. And I'm like, I need to explore this. Like, so I spent a lot of freshman year studying YouTube channels like Nick Nimmin and video creators. Like, if I ever met Nick Nimmin or Tim Schmoyer in real life, I would be able to tell them without any exaggeration that they saved my life. Like, I was in a very bad place freshman year, but it was those videos that showed me, yes, you can actually take control of your life. You can build a career in a business with YouTube. Those were the ideas that kept me going. And my initial thought was build a side hustle that could pay me and supplement my income so I could have a career that I liked better. I still didn't think of it as a full career yet, but that kind of built over time as well. And then, the same thing with with parents, there's a lot of pushback, but what I had to do was I basically had to make almost like a Shark Tank level pitch. You can even see I have like diagrams up here. I have a whiteboard in my room that I'm constantly like jotting things down. This is actually like a rough estimation of like the total addressable market of wildlife videos that I was drawing for myself, just for like context when I was doing my own strategy work. My parents think very traditionally in terms of careers. They both have, advanced degrees. They both went to graduate school. They're both in very technical professional careers. So they speak numbers. They speak data and figures and analytics. So instead of pitching them a YouTube career as I'm going to make internet videos and become famous, I was like, here's how I'm going to target an audience. Here's the way I'm going to reach them. Here are the systems that I'm building that will more or less be conducive to the behaviors that will help grow these videos. Here is how I know that this is the kind of behavior that will grow these videos. Here's what I know about the algorithms that recommend videos. And here is the, rough audience size that I'm targeting based on this channel, this channel, this channel, this channel that are doing this many views per month. Just tons and tons of data and figures. And then I'm like, here are my current numbers. Here are what people are qualitatively saying about my content. So people believe in what I'm doing. I just need to make it bigger, and I just need time to actually put in the effort to videos to make them bigger and grow them to the point where it will actually support me. Which they were like, okay, I at least understand what you're trying to do. And they're like, okay, we'll give you a year. So it was 2020 when I graduated. They're like, we'll give you a year to get this sorted. And so for that year, I was posting weekly. I was grinding as hard as I could. And the thing is, like, even if you have this amazing plan, the execution part is still a skill that you learn. Like, I didn't really know how to fully execute on my plan when I first started hitting it hard. So it was that weekly posting was kind of learning, here's how to make videos. I'm learning systems to make videos that help me make them faster. Because at that time I was also editing for another channel. Another channel picked me up. He was like, hey, I love your editing style. Would you mind helping me with this? So I was editing for him. So I was basically posting 2 videos a week for the first 2.5 years. Yeah, 2020, 2021. I stopped editing for him in 22. So yeah, like just over two full calendar years, I was editing for him and posting 2 videos a week, while bartending as well, once the world opened up a bit again. So I was pulling like 70, 80-hour weeks between finding stuff in my yard or surrounding areas to filming my videos, editing and writing my videos, editing for my client, and making sure that I was getting all my bartending shifts in. So the nice thing was I had money coming in, so my parents couldn't like say I was wasting my time. Like, okay, you're paying your bills, you're not like homeless or destitute, so like clearly something's working. And then it was 2022 when I did the wolf spider bite test, where, I can tell you the exact moment my life changed, because I was out. It was the last week of June. I was filming a light trapping video in my, just out in my front yard. I set up a sheet and I had a light and I was just like seeing what insects showed up, and I was filming those. And this big wolf spider shows up under the light trap. And I actually didn't get that catch on camera, but I had a catch of a different catch on camera with a wolf spider that I was like shining for. I'm like, well, I could use that catch again because it's the same species. But then I captured that one, and I'm like, well, it's a big wolf spider, and wolf spiders tend to do well for my viewers because I think at that point I had two of my best videos had been about wolf spiders. I'm like, well, I'd be stupid to let this wolf spider go. I need to film something with it, but I don't know what yet. And so I was talking to my buddy Jack, and Jack was at the time the guy who did all the bites and stings besides Brave Wilderness, because he did a lot of like myth busting bites and stings where he would take the worst painful stings. He did a black widow, he did a brown recluse, and he would basically show this is what actually happens to you if you're bitten or stung by this, or this. And what I hadn't seen much of was people testing common stuff that you'd see in your backyard biting and stinging you. I saw a lot of the really scary, dangerous stuff, but I didn't see a lot of this common, well, what actually happens if a wolf spider bites you? Because that's something you might actually see in your backyard. It's not a black widow or brown recluse. It's not scary on that level, but it's a big spider. That scares a lot of people. I think people would want to know what happens if this thing bites you. So I was talking to Jack, and I'm like, maybe I will test this. And he's like, yeah, you should do it. You should do it. And so I kind of worked up the nerve, and I'm out the next day trying to film this thing biting me. And
as you do,
it was, yeah. And I'm out there. No, boy, not right now. Okay. My dog just let himself in. But I'm out there like trying to get this thing to bite me, and it's taking forever. I have the camera rolling. It took like 20 minutes for this wolf spider to finally bite me. And I'm like, well, that needs to be part of the story, because not only did this bite not hurt that bad, but it took forever for the spider to actually bite. People would want to know that I'm sitting here trying to make this spider bite me and it won't bite. Because people think, oh, it's a big, scary spider, it's going to bite me. That's like one of the first things that pops in their head. So when I made that video, I put it together, and I thought it would do above average. I didn't think it was going to be like a crazy breakout video or anything. So it was that Saturday night. At that point, my videos were going out at 6 p.m. So I was working when the video went live. And it was July 2nd. Our small town actually decided to have their 4th of July celebration that night instead of Monday, because the weather was supposed to be really bad on Monday and everyone was home on Saturday. So like, well, might as well. And so it was 8 p.m. We decided to close the restaurant early because it was slow, because the traffic was kind of stopping because people were setting up their cars and stuff to watch the fireworks. And we went outside to watch the fireworks because we're like, well, we're closed. We can just chill for a minute before we clean up. And I'm sitting on the bench and I get a text from my buddy, Zach, the guy who runs Life's Wild Adventures. That was the guy who I was editing for. And he's like, hey, your wolf spider video is doing pretty good, isn't it? And I'm like, what do you mean? And so I look, and for context, at this point in my career, a good first day for a video was like 2,000 views. That was a really good day. Typical was more like 500 to 1,000, but a really good day was 2,000 views for the first 24 hours. It had been up for 2 hours, and it was already over 3,000 views and climbing. And I remember sitting there like, oh, that's special. And it just continued to just roll. It was my fastest video to 100,000 views. It was my first one to be over 5 digits in the first 24 hours. And what I noticed was the systems that I had built, where I call it the content highway, where I have these series that are designed to be like high traffic movers. And then they have, at the end of every video, I have them send to something else. What I choose to send to is usually based on, like, you have a content, like a big interstate style, like stream of videos. And then I have these exits that take people off to more story driven or more obscure things that I think they'll really find interesting, but they might not be like viral or discoverable on their own. And I noticed that not only was this video blowing up, but everything on the channel was coming alive. It was like almost like a heartbeat. The viral video was the heart pumping blood to the extremities of my channel. And my baseline views per day went from like 2,000 a day to 15,000 in the first week of that video. And in the second week, it went from 15,000 to 30,000 views a day. And it was like, I was now making more money per day than I made on a typical night bartending. And it was like, well, I don't need to work anymore. I can just do YouTube. So it was crazy, but that's kind of how it progressed.
I love that. I love how, because everybody assumes, these like content creators you're just born and that's it. You're made to do it. But a lot of times you find a pivot point of pain where you just think, I need to make a change. You kind of put up a job up to that point, because you're very similar to me. I mean, went off to college, hated it. I was deeply homesick, deeply unhappy. Did a HND, like a higher national diploma here, and then thought, I don't want to do this. It's low pay. It's crap. It's not what I want to do. Stupidly, I didn't go into itching my creative passions. I kind of just stayed and went into a job. And now, 12 years later, I'm just coming out one going, I want to change. I want to do it. And that's why you find people like you very inspiring. Because I think moms tend to they want you to be happy, where dads kind of see it as, I can understand a job. I can understand a career. That makes, it's more a logical sense. I'm trying to get us into that moment of, what do you mean this? No, I don't understand how you're going to do this, affiliate sales and stuff. And I can't for the life of me work out SEO. I interview all these amazing people, but I can't seem to market it, to create a community. That's my kind of major bugbear at the minute. But you've talked about going out with just your camera. You know, you seen a snake. You know, it's just like these opportunities. You trial, you fail. You trial, you fail. Exactly, and it's how do you think is that what puts people off? Do you think starting these careers because they think you've got to have the state of the art camera, you've got to have these codes, you've got to have these backdoor friendships with YouTube to be successful, rather than just try fail, and then eventually one thing clicks. Is that what you think puts people off?
I see a couple different like main motifs of what people are usually afraid of. Biggest one is risk aversion. They're like, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of, they see the trial and error and they're like, I don't have time to do the trial and error to get it to work. I need to work now or it's just not going to be viable. I see people say, oh, it's too saturated. YouTube is too saturated. Well, you know, how can I make a splash in this totally saturated thing? And then I see people who are just, they think it's totally luck. You have to either know somebody or just be born into it. I'll address all three of those because I can pretty much debunk them all. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of a luck component, but the luck isn't whether anybody can do it. I think anybody can. It's just a matter of how long it will take. I don't think you can control where in the learning curve you start. And the learning curve is a very necessary part. But the first one being the time's going to pass anyway. And if you actually want to do something, I think you'll find a way to do it. And it's very cliche, right? But it's like, the reason I chose wildlife as my topic to make videos on, because I knew that I needed to make videos. I have been, like you said earlier, you mentioned it feels like I was destined to be a YouTuber, and I don't like the words destined or like I don't like to call something a calling. It's just a little too spiritual for my taste. I'm a very analytical person, but it's like, for lack of a better word, ever since I discovered what YouTube was, YouTube kind of followed me around. It was that thing that was like that brain worm that I could never shake. Right? I always found myself coming back to YouTube in some way, shape, or form with my hobbies. If I was learning a new skill, I would make a YouTube channel about that skill. So when I was learning how to make video games in middle school, the natural thing was, well, I really like programming video games. There are other people who like programming video games. I want to show them some of the cool things I've been able to make and do tutorials on how to make video games like this. Like my first ever viral video that I ever made. Do you remember Flappy Bird? The mobile game, the little bird that bounced around, and everyone would rage because it was like after a certain point it would get really hard, and everyone had their like rage compilation of Flappy Bird. It was like 2011, 12, something like that.
You could move for videos of that, yeah.
And I was like, it's such a simple game. I could probably make that game. And I did a video where it was like 16-year-old makes Flappy Bird in 12 minutes or something. I think that was what it was called. And I just made a copy of Flappy Bird in like 12 minutes. And I posted that to YouTube, and it got like 10,000 views in the first week. And that was viral for me at the time. So I was like, holy crap, what? Like, you know. But then on that same channel, because I got pretty good at making video games in like late middle school, early high school, I learned I learned common problems that I had, and I learned how to solve them. So I would make videos that solved the problems that I had solved, and those would also get thousands of views. I ended up killing that channel because I just didn't have the passion for game design anymore. But every time I had a new skill that I was getting into or a new hobby I was getting into, pretty naturally some sort of YouTube channel would follow. And in college, after that like relationship where I was talking to that girl and she was telling me how you could make money on YouTube, I was studying, you know, those like YouTube gurus. They're like, make sure you have a niche, make sure you have a specific type of video you're making. And I'm like, okay, so what do I make videos about? And the biggest thing was figuring out what to make videos about. That was my biggest challenge. And the only style of video that I had known at that point were tutorials, gameplay walkthroughs, or skits. And I really didn't want to do any of those because they hadn't worked for me before, and none of those hobbies were big enough parts of my life anymore. the only thing that was constant throughout my whole life was wildlife. So I'm like, well, what if I did wildlife videos? Because I mean, this Brave Wilderness guy over here, he's doing really well. And there's not a whole lot of other channels that are doing wildlife. Surely I could add my hat to the ring and do well. And so that's what I picked. I'm like, let's do wildlife videos. Since I'm already out in the woods all the time, just poking around for stuff, why not just bring a camera with and film what I see and then just figure out how to tell the story in post? And so the time argument, I say, figure out what you're already doing in your free time and then find a way to turn that into a YouTube channel, and you'll be able to make a YouTube channel happen. So that's a time argument. The saturation argument, you can either frame saturation as a hurdle or as an opportunity. And the way that I see it is, if there's a lot of channels talking about a topic, then that means that there's buzz on the internet around that topic. That means people are interested in that topic. And if you can add to the conversation, it doesn't matter how many channels are there, they'll watch yours too. So even with the wildlife space, right? Like the wildlife space used to be kind of the Wild West, and now there's a ton of channels that are making animal videos. But it's like every new channel that I see, even ones that are just blowing me out of the water too, it's like they're adding interesting things to the conversation. They're doing something new. They're adding something unique. And oftentimes they're not even doing documentary style like I do. They're doing like these animations or these kind of funny skits that are also scientifically relevant. And they have these really creative angles that add unique and interesting voices to the conversation. And as a result, they grow. People find that and they're like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to watch this too. They're going to add that to the repertoire of channels they're watching. And it works. So I'm like, the saturation is only a problem. And it's only a hurdle if you let it be a hurdle. If you're like, okay, this is where the conversation's at. How can I, using my unique perspective and my unique experiences and my unique interests, how can I add another voice to this? If you approach it that way, like, it's not going to be immediate success, but like you'll be able to find success even in a saturated market. I don't care what the topic is. It could be Call of Duty. There are millions of Call of Duty channels, but I guarantee if you brought a unique voice to Call of Duty, people would watch it. And then of course the last one, just the luck-based thing. Are you born into it? I think some people are definitely more naturally talented at like to storytelling or being in front of the camera, or it might just be naturally more charismatic than others. Like there's people in my personal cohort of YouTube channels that I think are way better storytellers than I am, or way better presenters than I am. The only thing I think that I use that makes me stand out from some of them is I'm a better data analyst. So I can make smarter pivots on my videos than they do. But I mean, it doesn't matter what your innate talents are. The biggest thing is just figuring out like, and this goes back to your SEO comments too. It's, can I figure out an audience who is underserved in the space that I'm interested in? And can I make stuff that resonates with them? Like I had a conversation, my girlfriend and I actually met this girl because she was doing graduation photos for my girlfriend. And she was like, yeah, I really struggle with SEO for my business. And my girlfriend was like, oh, he does that for a living, basically. And it's true. Like, you know, I do a lot of, like, you see a lot of the wildlife and the wrangling and the adventuring and the story, the writing and stuff, and the cinematography, but a lot of it all comes back to that SEO and analytics. You know, how do I position myself? It's not with keywords. It's who is the audience member that is your most ideal person that you're trying to target? What makes them tick? Get to know them better than they know themselves. And the rest of the channel kind of makes itself. I mean, yes, like there's going to be some gear grinding sometimes as you're figuring out how to best serve that audience, but that's where the reps are going to be. You just get better. Once you have the psychological profile, the trick is just making a lot of videos and getting better at figuring out this is what they actually respond to. It took me a while to actually figure out target audience to a point where I was super, super satisfied with it. But once I had it down, I noticed that my decision-making with content was so much easier. My decision-making with SEO, like how would I title a video? And I'm looking less at keywords, and I'm looking more at the emotional response that I'm trying to elicit. So what's the language that my most ideal viewer is going to respond to? That's the kind of language I'm going to use in my title. That's the kind of language I'm going to use in a thumbnail. And that approach, once I implemented that approach, my baseline got so much hotter. And it's even crazy too now, because I run a Discord server for my channel. And a lot of the most active members in the Discord, it is spooky how accurate my target audience profile is. These people, they might be different ages now. They might be different genders. They might have different, career paths. But the thing is, they all have that similar background. They were all very similar to 6-year-old Spencer. They were all like poking around in their yard as kids, and they were just fascinated by the creepy crawlies they found there. And the natural world captures their imagination in ways that nothing else does. And as a result, it's like, I know what kind of, by understanding my audience, I know what kind of like outside references to throw in. These people aren't just wildlife nerds. They're big into nerd culture. They like Star Wars. They like Lord of the Rings. They like video games. So I know kind of, what styles of references to make. I know, what sort of comparisons to make, instead of, just talking about clinical science, I can compare and contrast these animals with well-known monsters from video games or pop culture, because I know what pop culture references my audience is going to resonate with. With music choices too, like I said back earlier in the interview, it's not just the mood or tone of the music. I know what style to use. I know that these people like certain types of instrumentals, so I know to use this style of music versus this style of music when I'm putting the background tracks in to different voiceovers and things. Like it's all like super built on that psychology. And the more specific you can get on that, the less the SEO stuff is going to really matter, because people will see your stuff and it'll like actually speak to them, and they'll be like, oh, this is for me. And when they watch it or they listen to it, they're going to hear that it's for them, and they're going to basically just connect deeper with your work and want to watch and consume everything you do.
It's really hard not to stop and start taking notes, because I was just so many light bulbs just now were just popping, going, you could change that video, you could do that, you could rewrite that. And I think that's what I've kind of lost the track of, because I used to do that. Like my mom would always say, if you've got a problem, Google it, because you'll see tens of thousands of other people will have that same issue. And I used to write how, fix this problem that I have by speaking to so-and-so. And then as soon as I tried to do keywords, SEO, all that, suddenly you're like, my ratings have gone down, my viewings have gone down. And I think you probably would have helped so many content creators just now who are sitting thinking, but so-and-so said I needed SEO. So-and-so said I needed this and that. And it's just that set of skills into it. It's how to tell a story, how to record, how to sell it, how to inspire people. And once you start fix a wee bit here, fix a wee bit there, that's the joy and also the darkness of YouTube and content creation, because you can spend all day tweaking and checking analytics and all that. So how do you actually go about creating these things? Like, how do you decide what you're going to do? How do you get over that fear of, if I make this video compared to that video, it might mean I have a worse month? Like, do you just let your passionate version of yourself out, and because you know who your target audience is and they'll find the video? Or how do you get over that initial kind of, do you make a content plan? How do you set this up for going forward?
So I let both. Like if you can think of your analytical and your passionate, like creative side as like your angel and devil on your shoulder, I actually listen to both of them. And it's important to not release videos. Like, don't make videos that you're not excited about making, because they're going to turn out crappy. Like just they're going to be bad. But also, don't just make videos because you're passionate about them. Unless, again, it depends on your goals for your channel. Like, the conversation that I have with somebody who is just doing YouTube as a hobby versus someone who's trying to make a business is very different. If you're not trying to actively grow an audience, then make videos you're passionate about and don't care about numbers. And like I always say with colleagues of mine, I'm like, listen, if your expectations do not match reality, you either have to change your approach or change your expectations. You can't get both. And if your expectations are to build a career, you do have to listen to the analytical side of the YouTube thing as well. So when I'm doing content planning, it's kind of a detailed process because number one, I'm sort of dependent on what I can find in the field. So like people have been requesting certain things for ages, and I'm like, well, that thing lives on the other side of the world from where I live. I can't just fly across the ocean like next week and get it and then come back. Like it doesn't work like that. And I hold myself to a pretty high standard of I want to only use footage that either I filmed or somebody I worked closely with in the field has filmed.
No.
I don't like using stock footage if I can avoid it, with the exception of if it's like footage of just like random stuff. If I'm trying to like illustrate a point, like, oh, if I'm talking about cooking, I'm not going to go and just like cook something to get B-roll of it. I'll just go use stock footage of that. Or if it's like a lab setting, I don't have access to a lab. I'm working on getting partnered with UNC where I graduated from. But I'm not partnered with a lab yet. So I don't have access to a lab where I can get my own footage of lab science work. So that I'll get, stock footage of. But if it's of an animal or plants or anything like that, like things that I would be able to film in the field, I like to use my own footage. And so a lot of my ability to make certain videos that I know will do well is hindered by my ability to not get to go film them yet. But that aside, when I am planning content, I do a content plan. I usually will have, I like to have a whole quarter planned out, or at least a good idea of what that quarter looks like if I haven't filmed everything for that quarter yet. And I will basically position videos in a funnel. So when you're asking like, how do I know which videos to make, or how, am I going to just trust my audience to find them? The funnels that I build, I start with top of funnel, and the idea is that these are not just for my target audience, but for people who are interested in insects or animals in general. And what I'll probably do too is I'm like, well, what are people interested in with insects? They're usually afraid of them. So I'll be looking at what are the questions that people have about insects or spiders when they see them? Is this dangerous? Can this kill me? Is this venomous or poisonous? So using words like that they'll recognize and will get their attention, and then using a really crazy creature in the thumbnail. So like what I'm working on this week after I finish this ogre face spider video that I'm editing today is I'm working on a video for the second upload of this month, which is going to be the most poisonous insects in the US, not venomous, poisonous. So it's a compilation of the 5 most recognizable insects that actually have poison to defend themselves. And the thumbnail is going to be the larval form of a firefly, because those things look insane, alien, like one of the weirdest looking insects ever. Because I know when people see that thumbnail, they're going to see this really bizarre looking face of the firefly larva in macro. It's super colorful. It's super strange looking. And they're going to see the title, these are the most poisonous insects in the US. They're going to want to know, first of all, what the heck that thing is on the thumbnail. And number 2, which insects are actually poisonous. And my goal with the video throughout the story of the video is to actually surprise them with what things are poisonous and aren't poisonous, and what poison actually does for insects in the environment. And if you can kind of see what I'm doing there is it's casting a wide net. So a lot of people will click on that. But then my target audience, who is really interested in the inner workings of the natural world and how these insects and stuff survive, they're going to really resonate with that message. They're like, wow, this is actually really cool. I never thought that this would be poisonous, or that the poison did this for this insect, or wow, that's a crazy way of using poison. And so once they see that, they kind of get the vibe of the channel. and they're already kind of interested in knowing more. So when I get to the end of the video and I'm like, all right, if you liked this video, watch this video next, they can then, they trust me enough to click that next one. And then what I'll do is that next one will be kind of middle of funnel, a bit more story driven. They get to know me more. They get to come with on the storytelling more, and they're kind of hooked. And then they start watching basically everything I post. And so it all starts with figuring out, in a broader sense, it's actually what I was doing here. This is actually an old diagram I wrote for myself, but I was kind of figuring out what are the total addressable markets in wildlife, and what are the bigger, broader circles that wildlife might fit in. So it's like I can actually like just scoot you over here a little bit. So I kind of had insects, spiders, and reptiles as like their own groups within wildlife. And then I just had like estimated audience sizes. I just said wildlife is like 60 million because I knew that, Coyote Peterson, Brave Wilderness has like 22 million subscribers, and many of their top videos were in like the 60 to 50 million view range. So I'm like, I'm going to estimate total market size as 60 million. And then I'm going to go, okay, wildlife is one part of science, because you could also say wildlife is part of the outdoors space, but I'm not a fishing channel. I'm a science channel. So I'm going to look at the science space as a whole. And like, there's lots of big science channels like Veritasium and Vsauce and I think Kyle Hill and stuff. And they have some videos that get over 100 million views. So I'm like, okay, maybe science is 100 million. And then that's part of the big education space. And so when I'm looking at these like circles that are outside my space, I'm looking at what are the things that people are generally interested in these spaces. Because if I can crack that, then I kind of know what topics or what questions to address that are going to be the widest nets to cast. And then I know how to structure those videos so that they're still engaging for that broad viewer, but also resonate with the target viewer. And it's like, as I'm even saying this, it's a very detailed, there's a lot of moving parts, and it just comes with practice. Like it's going to be one of those things that you're not going to get it on your first try. The people on YouTube who blow up with their first video, this is not their first channel. It's not their first channel when they're blowing up, because they've been doing it for years. They've been working with creators more experienced than them. This is stuff that you learn from posting hundreds of videos over the years and seeing, okay, this works, this doesn't work. If I cast this wide, this is why a wide net works, or this is how to cast a wide net. Like you kind of, you pick up on these things by just really studying the markets that you're in and getting a feel for, these are the broad questions that people have, and finding questions that haven't been served well. This all goes back to that game design space. Like Flappy Bird was a viral game. It was a game that everybody was talking about. Everybody had their rage compilations on when it was like big in 2012. So even though I didn't have the idea of making it go viral, I was like, well, it's such a simple game and I like making video games. So what if I just challenged myself to code this game super fast and then would see if the results followed? Sure enough, it was my first time that a video ever performed to something that I was like really like shocked by. And that lesson that I learned in 2012 was something that I took into the videos I make now, where it's like, okay, what are the conversations in wildlife that have lots of buzz, right? So bites, getting bitten by scary looking things. It's like, yes, that is a topic that has a lot of buzz, but how do I make it my own? How do I make it not just me screaming rolling on the ground like Coyote Peterson? How do I add real value to this that my target audience is going to really resonate with? And the story became myth busting creepy looking spiders and showing what happens when they actually bite you.
I love that. I love how like everything that makes your channel successful is just you letting yourself out. It's the channel is you, your personality as much as, because I think that's what we resonate with your videos is when we see Coyote Peterson in the safari suit, or you see Kyle Hill explaining like atoms and in labs and stuff, and you kind of go, right, okay, it's a wee bit, maybe I'll watch that when I can focus a bit more. But with you, it's just like a guy in a hat, pair of shorts and a t-shirt going out and seeing spiders, and then you'll be explaining about how they're misconstrued, but then you also give a quick little bit about the genome that it's part of, or you'll start saying about how this venom will act in this way, and we learn it as we go. But we're also enjoying the fun, the friendship between you and Jack, and like the brothers and all these kind of people, and we're not seeing it in that kind of. I know there's so much more. There's like licenses you'll have to apply for. You probably got a collection of like pipettes for collecting venom. You probably got containers for holding the animals. Your packed lunch. You've all got all these kind of things into. So it makes sense that you plan these things. But I think we resonate with you because it's just like a mate going out and then explaining to us something that we find as we go out there. How much do you kind of think about ahead into your videos? Are you thinking in a checklist of, okay, the mannerism, the toxicity, the venom, the scarcity, I need to show the landscape, I need to, or are you literally going, I find this interesting, I know people are going to find this interesting, so we'll see how the animal behaves and then create a story around that video? How much do you get deep diving in?
So it's a little bit of both. I actually compare a lot of what I do. It's very similar to daily vloggers in the sense that what happens in the field can be very stochastic. I'm not totally in control of the situation. So I have to do a lot more interpretation of what I'm seeing as I'm seeing it. So my goal is to be as researched as possible. I want to know as much about the animals I'm targeting as I can before I go out in the field, just so that I have an idea of what to talk about. I don't want to get there and be like completely caught off guard. For example, Ecuador, right? Ecuador, we got the Brazilian wandering spider. We had no idea if that was going to be a spider that was safe to handle or not. So we had to kind of watch her behavior every step of the way. Okay, this looks like she's not going to bite us. Let's see if she'll come on the hand and chill. And me shaking on camera, that was not fake. I could really be in trouble here. I could be in real big trouble here if things go south. But it was like I said, when I'm like, okay, I have this backlog of species of spiders that I've worked with, and if I'm really patient with them and I'm really gentle with them, they won't bite me. And the only time that happened, the only time that I ever was bitten on accident was the red widow last spring. And since then it hasn't happened again. With the Brazilian wandering spider, it didn't happen because it was just be really patient, be really slow, and don't rush any of the encounters. And typically the spider stayed chill. In terms of actual field procedures, we try to get as much B-roll as we can as we go. And that's something that I personally do, and I teach a lot of my colleagues to do. I'm like, don't just film the adventure in post. Because sometimes what we'll do is, if we're really on a crunch time, we'll really just focus on searching, find the animal, and then build the story backwards after we've filmed it. But a lot of times I'm like, no, I want to get the raw reactions. I want to film B-roll as we go. I want to get landscapes as we go. I want to get talking heads of me just vlogging as I'm hiking as we go, before I've actually found the thing, so that there's actually some tension there. You can even hear it in my voice that I don't know if I'm going to find this thing. I don't know if this clip is going to be used. So I have I usually come back from a trip. If I'm gone for more than a week, I have 100 gigabytes of footage usually to sort through. And the first thing I do is I'm sorting through all the footage when I get home while it's still fresh. So I know what clips are actually usable, which clips are not usable, which clips might be good for a future story if I ever do go back to that location and find the thing I was looking for. So a lot of it's just, long story short, is a lot of times we have a rough idea going into the field of what we'd like the video to look like in an ideal world. Just based on what the animal is, we kind of know, okay, the most interesting things about this animal are X, Y, and Z. So these are the 3 things we're going to focus on with our general concept for that video. And then what we're going to do is, if we find the animal, we're going to interpret its behavior as we work with it, kind of really do a flow of consciousness presentation. These aren't scripted, these aren't prepared. It's just talking about the animal, what we find interesting, what it's doing, and then trying to just sort of, it's a learned skill, but it's finding a good arc to the presentation, like building into more and more interesting things about the animal, and then bringing it down into, like, me personally, I like to open with appreciation. I'll, when I find the thing, oh wow, look at how weird it is, look at how cool it is. Maybe a little bit of my experience, like what it feels like to be hands-on with that thing. And then I kind of have a jumping off point onto like a patterning or a certain particular feature of the animal that I find interesting that I can use to launch into more of a fact-based science discussion of like how this animal survives, what it's doing, interpretation of its behavior. And then what I'll do is I'll bring it back home. Now we have context of this is why this thing is so interesting. So now I'm going to go back into appreciation. I'm going to be like, okay, I'm so happy we were able to find this and insert location here. And I like to end them off with like a little comment like, oh, isn't that cool? Or something like that before I go into a voiceover. So little things like that are structural points. But a lot of the actual meat of the video is made in post. So I will have entire days dedicated to like basically looking through my segments that I've shot in the field, looking through the footage I shot in the field. What did I say? What didn't I say? What more needs to be said? What do I think is too much? What do I think is probably not necessary for the story I'm trying to tell about that particular animal? And then I will assemble all that together in a final like edit. The biggest one of the things like I struggle with is actually outsourcing editing, because my editing and writing process are so intertwined. I have to do some edits before I can write, and I have to write before I can do some edits. So it's like, in order to get an editor, it'd be a weird asynchronous process, and getting somebody who can be flexible with that is surprisingly tough. Because yeah, like I said, like all these things are made in post. It's very similar to like daily vlogging, right? You're filming your day, you're getting as much footage as you can of your day, and then you get home and now you have to figure out, where is the story here? Because you can manufacture the story, but I've found that the times where I've done that, it just doesn't come out as good as the ones where I let the story tell itself and I put it together in post.
I love it. I mean, I could sell this as a content creator's dream just now, because you're explaining how you've built such a juggernaut of a channel, and I think that's what I love about it. It's like that time you got bit by the Red Widow. It was just kind of, oh, that happened. Okay, oh, but I could make a video on this, and I think if you
was rolling, I was rolling when it bit me. I'm like, I literally, I was talking to like my buddies. I'm like, I talk a lot about how spiders are not out to get us. I'm not even sure if I want to release this video, because this one kind of defies everything that I've said about spiders. It defies everything that I knew about widow spiders. I had never had one just outright bite me like that.
No.
And I'm like, we got it on camera. I think it's an interesting story. I think there's a story there. Let's document what happens to me as this bite progresses and just see what happens. And then we'll put the story together and see where it goes from there.
I love it. It was that kind of moment of like, should I go to hospital? No. Okay, I'm going to start checking in and see how this does. I'll record my symptoms. It's like that guy that didn't, I don't remember his name now, who knew it was going to kill him to record his symptoms, but he wanted to show the help with anti-venom research. So he sat and recorded the bite. I can't remember which snake it was. And, it was
I think it was the boom slang.
There's dedication, and then there's, but that's what I think is like, I would love to see you do videos about the types of venom and working with labs and how it breaks down and show blood splat. But we would follow you into that role because we've built up this understanding with you being, look at what I found in my garden, look what I found in my house. And, you're that friend of education that brings us in. So we'd follow you on the journey no matter where the channel goes. How would we start identifying, like, because a lot of people are oblivious to the spiders in their own home. And I love the video you did on, like, what's in your home, what's in your garden. How do we start noticing the dens, the burrows? Because it seems like in your videos, you go out, you lift up a rock, you lift up a bit of wood, there's something under there. But I know that you could identify, well, there's such and such around here, there's prey here that's likely to be this for this type of animal. How do we start get our head out of our arses and seeing what's happening in front of us. Because I interviewed a macro photographer called Matt Doug, and his kind of macro photography opens up about insects, and you're suddenly seeing their world and their faces and all the little intricate parts of them, and you're like, oh, that's amazing. How do we start paying attention and identifying the wildlife around us?
I think the first thing is really just, you'd be surprised where there is wildlife, honestly. You'd be very surprised. Like, people comment on my videos sometimes. They're like, oh, but I live in a high rise, so I don't have a backyard. I'm like, yeah, you do. You have bricks outside your window? Is there lichen on those bricks? Yeah, you've got wildlife outside your window. Even those small little things like that, like little bits of moss and lichen on the bricks of your house, there are things that live inside the lichen. So if you buy a cheap microscope online, you scrape that lichen off, put it in water overnight, take the lichen out of the water, shake the water onto a microscope slide, you'll see tardigrades, you'll see different like microscopic crustaceans, you'll see all kinds of weird microscopic life that's just right outside your window. So even if you live in a high rise in London or New York City or anywhere, like there's definitely life closer to you than you think. And I think the biggest thing is get kind of creative about where you look. Like, don't be afraid to look behind your toilet to see what's there. Don't be afraid to look closer in the flowers in your front garden. Like, anywhere where there is structure, there is the potential for little living things to move in and find shelter there. Anywhere where there is resources, plants are resources, water is resources, anything that has access to water. So again, the side of your house, if it gets rained on, there is water there. There could be resources, little bits of algae and stuff that come from the wind that have taken root there, are taken up by fungi and build lichens. There's all kinds of areas where life can seed. And if you can look for those little places, you can find things living there. And the closer you look, magnifying glass, just physically getting closer, microscope, whatever, the more living things you're going to see. And you'd be surprised how biodiverse the world is. Like, it's kind of where my concept of a secret world came from, because I'm really fascinated by microhabitats. So it's not just, like a forest is a big habitat, but there's different types of plants in a forest. There's different sections of a forest. You have the canopy, you have the understory, you have the humus, the detritus underneath the ground. You have the bark of the trees. You have, different sections of the branch that have different, like, miniature environmental conditions. Like, how exposed to wind are they? How exposed to light are they? Is there lichen there? Is there moss there? All the different changing conditions means there's probably different living things that are using that specific location in a habitat. So like, even if you have the most manicured hedge in front of your house, I guarantee you there are probably things living inside that hedge. Mm-hmm. If you're willing to like actually get in there and look, you'll probably find stuff. The most manicured lawn, unless you're just spraying that thing to hell with pesticides, there's probably stuff living there. And that's the perfect place to start, is just your backyard. What little things, if I flip a brick over, if I, look behind this board, if I see some webbing, if I go take a closer look at the web, what's living in that web? Sometimes it's not even a spider. You'd be surprised. There are insects and stuff that spin webs too. Finding the little things there, it kind of gives you a launching point when you're out hiking to see other areas where there's little structures, and you can see all kinds of weird stuff on hikes. Like, I've been living in North Carolina for 12 years now. And even still, I'll go outside and I'll see stuff I've never seen before. Over time, you get better at learning how to identify stuff. Like, okay, this is not just a spider. It's this type of spider in this family. But that comes, again, practice. It's just, and I think the biggest thing to even take it back to like creator stuff too, I wouldn't say that learning how to identify every animal in your yard to family or species is something that's for everyone. Not everyone likes to do that. I do. A lot of my colleagues do, but not everyone likes to do that. Sometimes they just want to go out and see some weird looking stuff, and that's fine. But if you're anyone who wants to become a creator, for example, one of the biggest things that I noticed is the stuff that you naturally gravitated towards as a kid are the things that you kind of naturally continue to like. They're like the gears that kind of continue to turn in your head, even if you think they're not there, they're still kind of there. Like the level of English Spencer, the level of detail that I put in with identifying wildlife is because I've always been just super attuned to what kind of weird little things are there. Like, if you're familiar with the cartoon show Gravity Falls.
Don't think so. It's not ringing a bell.
It was from Disney, but there was this show, and it's like these two kids investigating like mythological creatures and stuff in their town, and one of the kids finds these journals that his uncle left, that document all the different mythological creatures and what they do and stuff. And like the old timey naturalists, right, where you have like just those like that journal and it's all full of sketches and notes and stuff. There's part of me that's always wanted to do something like that because I love drawing and I love just documenting these weird details of the natural world that I just find so interesting. In a way, the YouTube channel is kind of that, not fully, but in a way it's kind of that. But that's because I've always been drawn to those things. If someone was always into like basketball or something, they're going to know a lot more stats about basketball and a lot more about the physicality and the rules and how to play than I do. Someone who's always been into, cars, for example, they might know a lot more details about how an engine works and how the different like mechanical parts of other machines that are not cars work, because that's just kind of the stuff that they've always been drawn to and the stuff that they've always paid attention to, and the like, even the like offhand details that they see on Reddit or in random conversations or something. Those things will stick with them because it's always just been something they've been sort of wired for. So like, again, like I wouldn't expect anybody to go to the level of detail of like identifying tardigrades to species or something like I would try and do. But, it's still really interesting. If you just look closely at the environment around you, you will find stuff. And the more you like look for patterns in the environment, like it's like a video game. It's like you can see hints that there's stuff there. If there's cover to flip, there's stuff there, guaranteed. Even if it's not the most interesting things, there's probably something living underneath cover. If there is structure that allows shelter and it has resources there, like a plant, like plants are good for both resources and shelter, things will congregate there. And just learning how to identify patterns in structure and cover and resources, you'll see, your world will get so much bigger because you will see so many weird things just living in your backyard or in your local park.
I love that because so many people don't realize how symbiotic everything is, like how plants help insects, which grow the grass, the wildlife that's around there. I grew up with sheep, we had lambs, we would go out with working dogs, so you kind of got to see like ducks and wildlife and knew about like how to cut down rashes and all the animals and the wildlife that was just going to live around in the hedges and all these sort of things. And people would say, I didn't even know any of that existed. There was a show here years ago where they took wild animals like, cows, sheep, etc., into an abattoir. It was like built into a studio, and they would show you them killing it. Then they would show it going into the butcher, and then it would show the chef how he would take the meat. And it was like showing the process through with it in front of a live studio audience. And a lot of people are like, that's horrific, like tears strolling down. And I was thinking, where do you think your food comes from? They didn't understand that we had to kill these animals, that a lot of them were grew, to raise, to herd. And that's what I think your videos are so helpful. It's you show the education, the myth, you break down the myths, you explain how the world is happening around us, that we are kind of just building onto their, habitats, how we're affecting them. But there's so much happening around the world. And I think that's what is amazing about your videos. It's you kind of get us to appreciate, but understand and protect local wildlife. And what, like you were saying earlier, is for people who are maybe content creators, maybe you don't grow up with lambs and sheep and cows, and I think you've got like you look after fostering animals, etc. So I think you said you had 9 dogs, for instance.
Yep.
Maybe other people don't have that, but they could have. Well, what about wildlife in your local area? What about wildlife in your local sports field or your local XYZ? And I think that's what you were saying earlier is get out there and you could actually find something that could be interesting to somebody like me. I would love to see the stuff like that. So how do you break down that myths? Because people go, fuck, that's got 8 legs. That's moving fast around. It's too small. I don't know what it's thinking. It's zigzagging all over the place. That snake hasn't got legs. I can't anticipate it. It's not like a dog. I can't see what it's thinking. All these kind of things in our heads. Oh, they're going to bite me. It's going to nip me. It's going to do X, Y, Z. How do you get us to appreciate animals, to see the beauty rather than the fangs, rather than the hairy legs? Because I remember we went to a circus years ago, and one of the things they did was, anybody scared of snakes? And of course, stupid people put their hands up, and they were immediately like, right, come in the middle, and they were getting them over, putting the snakes around their necks and explaining they're not slimy, they're dry. Or they would get them to hold spiders. And I remember the tarantula, the guy was explaining how it had two bodies with a bit in the middle that joined them, and how if you held it like this, it was absolutely fine. And it was like, whoa. So this is my long waffled way of saying, how do you break down those myths? How do you get us to appreciate and see the education and the beauty of the animals and not go, oh, fuck, that's terrifying?
So the first thing I do is I look at myths on a case by case basis. So like, is this something that I can like scientifically disprove with a bite test or a venom experiment? Like, can I visually show why this belief is not true? In cases like that, I'm like, okay, I can just do an experiment and test it. Sometimes there's more discussion involved. So something like a cottonmouth. One of the most infamous snakes here in the U.S. is the cottonmouth. And throughout the South, like the southern half of the country, it's a common belief that this snake will chase you. Now, they are what I would call passionately defensive. Like, this is one that's going to strike more likely than other snakes will. Like a rattlesnake, rattlesnakes will coil up. They'll just rattle their tail at you. They're very lazy. They'll just sit there and look at you. They want to conserve energy. Cottonmouths, they'll gape their mouth. They'll show those fangs. They'll just, they'll whack you if you're too close. But they'll never chase. They are, a very spastic, very wiry snake. Like a lot of the genus Agkistrodons, we have copperheads and cottonmouths in the U.S. And then down in Mexico and Central America, we have cantles. And it's the genus Agkistrodon. They're called like the hook tooth vipers. That's what Agkistrodon means. It means like curved or fish hook tooth in Greek. But they're very whippy, they can be kind of unpredictable and unfriendly snakes, but they're not aggressive. And so with things like that, I'll discuss, why do we think they're aggressive? Like, where does this come from? And a lot of it's rooted in culture. A lot of times, a lot of myths that are more pervasive and harder to disprove with science because it's like very subjective. They're a lot more cultural. Like I was actually doing research on arachnophobia. So the fear of spiders, I was doing a bit more of a deep dive into how arachnophobia came about for this video that's coming out this weekend. It's on the ogre face spider. It's a really, really bizarre looking spider. And I make the case that the ogre face spider can actually cure your arachnophobia because it's just so weird and its biology is just so strange that the more you look at it, the more you're like, I actually feel bad for this spider. I actually kind of like this spider. It's goofy looking. It has really strange biology. It's unlike any other animal on the planet. You actually learn to appreciate it. So you show people how it's strange and how it's, special. So that's kind of where the appreciation comes in, but also breaking down the science of the myth. So when I was researching arachnophobia, I learned it's actually not evolutionary. So we didn't evolve. We don't have a survival instinct that tells us to be afraid of spiders. We learn it from our parents, and they learn it from their parents. And the reason we know this is because humans originally evolved in Africa, like 2 to 6 million years ago, somewhere in that window. And there is only one spider in Africa that is lethally venomous to humans, and it is not living in areas that early humans would have been. It's living out in remote deserts. It's not living in the area where humans evolved. And then humans spread from Africa to Asia and Europe about 1 million years ago. And those continents also lack lethally venomous spiders. So for the vast majority of human evolutionary history, we actually weren't encountering spiders that could kill us. We didn't start encountering them until people spread to Australia and Central and South America, both of which happened in the last 50,000 years. So for the vast majority of human history, we were not seeing spiders that could kill us. So being afraid of spiders is not a survival instinct. Snakes, maybe, because there are a lot of deadly snakes in Africa and Asia, but spiders, definitely not evolutionary. So we see that a fear of spiders is actually learned. So when I approach it from that perspective, people are like, they start to think, where did I get this fear of spiders from? And it goes back to their parents freaking out when they saw a spider in the house.
Yeah.
And so the case that I make in this video is that, there's a lot of growing up as an individual. You have to overcome fears that were instilled in you by your parents. And a lot of progressing as a society is moving past fears that we had culturally in the past, right? Imagine if the Wright brothers hadn't tested their first flying machine. We wouldn't have airplanes. I wouldn't be able to fly to Australia next month. Imagine if Albert Einstein was too afraid to challenge the status quo of physics. We wouldn't have the knowledge of the world that we do now. We wouldn't have the space technology. We wouldn't have any of this stuff if Albert Einstein hadn't revolutionized how we understand energy and physics. We have to challenge fears to grow as individuals and as a society. So learning where fears come from and seeing that some of them actually aren't based in real provable fact, it actually can get people to be like, maybe this thing isn't so bad after all. And so when you lead with, here is why this myth is false, and here is why we actually shouldn't believe this thing, and then you show them the opposite too. You show them, not only should we not fear this thing, but look at how cool this thing is when we actually take a closer look. Look at the way its colors look. Look at how weird its face is. Look at this amazing hunting strategy it has, or look at the amazing way it can move. Any little interesting things that kind of just disarm them and give them a chance to look at this creature in a different way. You can actually sort of reprogram the brain to go from fear to fascination. Like, I was very afraid of spiders myself as a kid. I loved bugs, but I hated spiders. And that was almost why arachnophobia is so interesting to me, is like, why am I afraid of spiders but not insects? Right? So there's something there. If I'm not afraid of insects, but I'm afraid of spiders, I had to have learned that, because if I was afraid of all creepy crawlies, it would make more sense. But the fact that I picked and chose which ones I was afraid of, it was kind of that weird shift for me that I'm like, okay, I'm like, Spencer, you're being ridiculous. Stop being afraid of the spider. Just pick up the spider. And I remember like my first time picking up a spider, the first several attempts, I'm just like, I had to like drop it because I was like terrified of the thing. But like the fourth or fifth, I let it sit there, and I'm like, yeah, this is actually not unlike any of the insects that I let walk on me all the time. In other cases, this isn't that bad. And then from there, I was able to actually look at the spider closely and just appreciate how interesting it actually was, how cool its colors were, how cool its patterns were, how interesting its locomotion was. And spiders became like within an hour, spiders went from being terrifying to really, really fascinating to me. And that's a journey with snakes, with insects, with centipedes, all those kind of creepy crawly things that I like to bring people on, because like I can just see how the world changes for them because once we're not held back by our fears anymore, the world actually gets a lot bigger. We're kind of like what I was saying with taking a closer look at your surroundings. When that cobweb in your house is no longer scary because there's a spider there, it becomes really fascinating. You have a zoo exhibit in your house where this spider who lives in the corner, you go and look and see what bugs he's caught. That spider that's hiding behind your toilet, you're no longer afraid of that spider. You're like, oh, cool, that guy's eating the flies that come in my bathroom. You go out to your front garden, like the bees and stuff that are pollinating the flowers. You're no longer afraid that they're going to sting you. You're like actually sitting there watching. Wow, this behavior is kind of interesting. The way they're checking the flowers and like they're scanning with those antennae. Like you just start to see more details of the world, and as a result, the world gets a lot more interesting.
Because you would be very annoyed if you didn't have spiders for flies, mosquitoes, and and I think that I never thought about it like that, of what we have a fear of is been passed down, because a lot of times it's like the daughter sees the mother freak out when the spider's there. She's like, that puts her into the next thing. And you have this great video, I think it's the jumping spider, about how you made that as a pet. And, you have all these videos about, I think, kind of hit home of. I remember watching one of your videos, I don't remember which one it was, when you said, I had arachnophobia when I was a kid, and I was thinking, what the I think it was like you were holding a black widow spider at the time, and I was thinking, what the you're holding one of the most deadly spiders, and you're like, yeah, I used to fear these things. Then you're talking away, looking at the camera, as you see a black widow walking over your hand, and I think that you have this unique way of breaking down that fear, taking away the myths, educating us in a fun and exciting way, but also seeing you develop it. Your own abilities makes us think, okay, if he can do this, and it encourages people. Because in your 100,000 celebrated video, people are saying, you helped me get over my fear of spiders. You helped my daughter go out and explore her backyard. Does that give you that kind of like amazing buzz that you're helping change so many people?
It's incredible. Like it always starts, and like people who tell you, I never thought YouTube could get big or anything. I think everyone kind of dreams about it, even if they don't expect it. But what they don't expect is how much impact you can actually have. Like, and that's another reason why I'm like, if you have an idea for a channel, I encourage people to do it, because you never know how your perspective, your videos are going to resonate with somebody and completely change their whole worldview. Like for me, it's like, it's a big buzz to hear that I'm changing people, but it's also like, okay, I'm on the right track, because the more people who are overcoming their fear, the more people are becoming interested in these things. Like the way we protect wildlife is we have to get people to care about them, and they need to care about them in a positive way, not a negative way.
Yeah.
So one area where I often butt heads with researchers is because a lot of your more academic research types, they don't like that I lead with fear. They don't like that I lead with how scary something is or how creepy something is, because they're like, well, that seems to, validate people not liking these things. And I'm like, sort of. Initially it does, but my goal is to meet them where they're at so that they can click on the video. Like if I made a video about how, it's like, you shouldn't fear spiders, period, it might get some clicks. But like if I go, this spider will cure your arachnophobia, people are like, yeah, fat chance. And they click on that because they're trying to prove me wrong. And then they're shocked. They're like, oh, actually, you did kind of make me like spiders better.
Or you've got to meet them at the level they're at, not the level you want to teach them at. Yeah. Or
like, again, with bite tests and like danger, I've learned that I don't necessarily need to be bitten by animals to use the bite in the marketing, because there's certain things that are actually too dangerous to be bit by. Like I'll do a video like, this is the spider bite to worry about, because people are thinking about spiders and being afraid of them. And, oh man, this is the spider bite to worry about. I want to know what that spider is and why it's something I need to worry about. And so they click in And it's like, it's clickbait, but it's like, you still deliver on why they should worry about this bite, but you also tell them, here is also why you shouldn't worry about this bite. This is a dangerous bite, but it's not trying to kill you. This is not a monster. This is why it's so venomous. This is what that venom is for. It's not for you. It's for its food. And you start to see these creatures in a different light, because it was like the amount of comments I've gotten on, and this is actually my intent with those bite tests. I had comments. People are like, I cannot believe I just watched you get bit by a spider, and I am less afraid of spiders as a result of this. And it was like, that was the whole plan, because I wanted to show that this spider does not want to bite me. It really doesn't want to bite me. Even if I'm forcing it to bite me, it doesn't want to bite. And two, the bite isn't that bad. So even if you are bitten on accident, you're going to be just fine. This thing is not dangerous. It just wants to eat bugs and stuff in your backyard.
Well, it doesn't want to give away its venom, does it? It takes so long for it to create it.
And it's like, people are like, oh, it just disarms them, because they're seeing the most scary thing. There's a term in psychology. It's like, I forget the exact term for it, but it's a therapy tactic. So they will basically have a patient describe the worst possible situation they could be in, and have them describe it out loud. And when they describe their worst possible situation out loud, it also kind of gives that situation less power over them. But they also start to see, by saying it out loud, they start to see how it's not realistic. So in the same kind of vein, I was like, how can I show people the worst possible situation they could have with a spider or a snake, and then show them how it's actually not that bad or not that realistic if it were to happen? Like, for a lot of the behavior tests, I'm not going to test a rattlesnake bite, because that's actually a really dangerous thing. But if I'm working with a rattlesnake, I'm going to show how this thing doesn't want to bite me. It wants to get away. It's doing everything in its power to get away from me, and I'm actively messing with it. So if you're just in your yard and a rattlesnake just happens to come in your yard, it's not going to try and kill you. It doesn't want to be there. It just happened to stumble into your yard because something disturbed it out of its burrow or something. Like, doing these behavioral discussions as much as the experiments, people start to see, oh, this is what this animal is actually like. It's not this overhyped monster that I've built in my head. And it starts to kind of disarm them and break down their walls, so that when I talk more about the appreciation aspect, like, this is why this thing is so cool or so special, they're actually more receptive to it. And that's something that a lot of like the academic researchers miss, because they're like, this thing is obviously so special, here's why. But I'm like, no, your average person doesn't understand that. They're afraid of this thing. They hate this thing. They actively kill these things. We need to first meet them where they're at, or they're never going to get to the conclusion that you're at, that these things are actually special and need to be protected.
Time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
Because that's like, a lot of times it's like people are bit when they're building new habitats, and which is essentially always been the snake's habitat. So, you know, it doesn't realize is the cobra comes in India to eat the rats, because they suddenly have a like a market, and there's a whole heap of old food around. So then there's a lot of these kind of misconstrued things, and I think this is where the beauty of like Chandler's Wildlife, where he went to India and he showed them collecting and catching rat snakes and then putting them away and working with the local populace, but explaining to them, well, if you didn't put your rice sacks here, or you tidied up this area, you wouldn't have so many snakes in here, and they understood that you could catch the animal, but you didn't need to kill it. Because I suppose a lot of stories are, oh, your uncle died because he got bit by a snake. So snakes are the demons. But when you're teaching people to say, well, actually, you just did that because it bit because of this. This is what to look out for. And I like your titles to kind of, well, this will fix this. This is that. There's a guy called, it's Clint Reptiles. That's his name. And, he'll do, is a black mamba the best pet for you? Is the king cobra the best pet for you? And you go, don't be so bloody stupid. And you watch the video. 2 minutes in, you're learning such unique things about it, but he still teaches you what you need for good snake. I was going to say husbandry, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Rearing, it's like you need to have the right habitat, heat, water, etc. But you also learn so much about the animals by watching the stupidity of the concept of the video, I think is probably a good way of putting it. And I think Chandler was, I've always been a bit kind of thinking about some of these bigger snakes. I used to think, oh, they're really interesting. And I think it was Chandler, he was showing how he had a white cobra, and it was the only one in existence in the whatever hemisphere he was in at the time. And he was showing how all the animals were watching and trying to eat, but the king cobra was sitting watching him. And all it was doing was watching him back and forth, and you could see the intelligence of the animal saying, and he was like, it's understanding, it's figuring out what's going on, it's looking at me, try to decide what's happening, is it a threat? And it was the intelligence, and you were like, that animal is amazing. And now I watch it in his videos, how all the others are just hiding in their burrows and stuff, or hiding in their enclosures. Well, his white, I think, Lucinda, and it was just sitting, watching, analysing, understanding. It doesn't want to come near him, but it was just that kind of, he was saying they can recognise their owners. It can recognise that it's feeding time compared. So if he strokes it, it knows it's not feeding time. If he opens it and holds something there, it understands it's food. It's these amazing things about it. But what has holding these scary animals taught you about taking risks in life? How do you kind of look at an animal and say, that is a stay the fuck away? Because you know how sometimes you see an animal, if it's brightly coloured in nature, it's a leave it alone because it's brightly coloured, which means it's not to be messed with. How do we kind of understand what an animal can be held? How can we understand what's a danger sign? And how do you kind of do it in real time as you're holding it to say, that's now a behavior that means put it down now, stop your video? How do we kind of understand the behavior of an animal if we're going to be working or doing a bit more of this? But how do we then use the attitude of taking risks to just take more risks in life even?
Okay. So with reading animals in real time, the biggest thing is the first thing is, what is going to act? I will take more risk with animals if I'm like, okay, if this thing does bite me and I'm fine, I'll be fine. I will probably be more likely to handle it than if not. Like, for example, one of the spiders in Australia that I'm still 50-50 on is the Sydney funnel web. I have seen it done. I have actually seen videos now where people were able to free handle a Sydney funnel web without being bitten. So I know it's possible, but I know it's going to really depend on the individual. And I know that if I am bitten by that, that's a trip ender. It won't kill me because they have antivenom, and thankfully Australian medicine is free, but it is a trip ender if I'm bitten by that spider. So that's one where I'm like, if it is not extremely cooperative, extremely placid, I probably won't take the risk. With something like a widow spider, a bite sucks really bad, but you won't die. Unless you're like, if you have a lot of complications, something you might die. But like, I'm a healthy adult, like I'll be fine. It'll just suck for a couple days. So I'm like, I'm more likely to risk it with a widow, but I'm still like, I would like to avoid a bite if I could. So I'm looking at, temperament. You can read temperament with a lot of animals just by kind of looking at how they're moving. So snakes, spiders, insects, centipedes, very fast spastic, erratic movement, they're probably a lot more stressed. That's just true of any of the animals that I've worked with. The faster they're moving and the more erratic their movement is, the more stressed they are. And the more stressed something is, the more likely it's going to misread something that you do as a threat, and it's going to bite in defense. Snakes, for example, in order to handle them, you have to actually grip them, right? And gripping a snake, you have to try and make sure that you're supporting it enough that it doesn't feel like it's being carried off by a predator. That's the best way to keep a snake calm when you're handling it. The problem is, it's also very invasive to do that. So if a snake is already scared when you come on it, it might not let you get it into a position where it's comfortable, and it will bite in defense. So I'm not going to simply just tail a venomous snake, because a bite from that would be a trip ender or possibly even a life ender, depending on the species. But a lot of it comes down to behavior. If something is really, really, really erratic, probably going to leave it alone. I'll probably be hands off. I'll keep it on a stick. I'll keep it on a piece of bark. I'll keep it in a container, because it's just like, okay, this thing is still an animal that I want to film and I want to showcase, but it's not an individual that I feel comfortable letting on my bare skin. With animals that are in a defensive position already, like they're not being erratic, but like a snake that's coiled up. That is, if a snake is coiled up, even if it's a non-venomous snake, that is the worst time to touch a snake. If it is coiled up, that is because it is ready to strike. It is ready to spring out and strike in defense. That is a defensive position. It's coiled up in a nice little tight ball, so it can literally see the head is like in the middle typically, or somewhere near the middle. So it can literally see all of its body and knows if you approach from any side, it can nail you. That is defensive. That is entirely defensive. It's to keep the snake alive. So if a snake is coiled up, I'm like, perfect. I can just sit behind the snake. It's going to stay coiled up right there and look at me. And I can talk about the snake. I don't need to put even a hook on it. I don't need to do anything. If it's coiled up, it's going to sit there and be fine. So a lot of that just comes down to like, it's just risk management. You know, the stuff that I am taking more liberties with is stuff that's not going to kill me. And the things that aren't going to hurt me at all are the things I'll take even more liberties with. If they're really defensive, really stressed out, I'm like, its bite is a pinch or it's a bee sting. That's fine. I can handle it anyway, because the worst it's going to do is bee sting me. If it's going to be, I'm going to be in a lot of pain for a few hours, I'm going to be a lot more observant of what its behavior is doing. And again, it's just risk. It's just risk management. So like in general, when I'm doing like, when I'm taking on a new endeavor, it's like, if this thing fails, how far behind is this going to put me? Right. Cause like with handling dangerous wildlife, failure is being bitten. So if this risk that I'm taking, if I lose, what does that loss actually look like? And just like in the case of like fears, you know, what is the actual worst case scenario if I lose at this risk? And then on the contrary, it's like, well, what is the upside? What is the best case scenario if I win? And then there's always the question of, well, how bad do I want this thing? Even if losing is really bad, how bad do I want this thing? Right. So back to like the Australian wildlife, you know, we're going after some super venomous snakes. Even if they were the most cooperative venomous snakes on the planet, I don't think I'd be hands-on with them, because I know what the downside is. Some of those snakes can kill me in minutes. So I'm like, I'm not going to just risk dying to this snake, especially when I have no concept that requires me to handle them. Most of my snake videos, I'm not handling them super haphazardly, because not even from a risk perspective, I actually like the way that the footage of the snake looks when it's on the ground coiled up. Those, from a filmmaking perspective, it just looks cooler to me if they're on the ground in a cool pose where I can get detailed shots of their face and their pattern. I can't get that kind of shot when they're in my hands anyway. So even if I could safely handle it, the video wouldn't look as good as I would like it to look. So the upside isn't that high. The downside is really low. Whereas I'm considering the funnel web. If I can safely handle a funnel web, I know how hard that video will go. I know the concept, the story that I'm able to tell. If I can handle a Sydney funnel web spider and live to tell the tale, that is an incredible story. That is a story that, I mean, people would be like, holy crap, that is legendary, because so few people have been able to do it, that if I can pull it off, the upside is amazing. Like, I think that the video that I'm conceptualizing with that spider is made so much better if I can handle it, that if the spider is cooperative enough that I think I'm not going to get bit, it's worth the risk. Whereas a very defensive, very angry spider that's going to guarantee to bite me, I don't care how many views that video would get. That's a trip ender. So I'm not doing that. So when it comes to using that same level of risk management in like other facets, it's like, you know, how bad do you want the thing? What does winning at that thing look like to you? What does losing at that thing look like to you? If the win is way better than the loss, then obviously take that risk. If you can manage your risk so that the loss is less likely and the win is very important to you, then I would say still go for it. Like, I only have right now, my main focus is this YouTube channel. So it's like, there's a lot riding on me being able to keep making videos. I've dialed back my uploads to 2 a month so I can make them higher quality. But it's like I'm working on scaling to the point where I can build other projects to help fund the channel. So I'm also not riding on just, do I have good ad revenue this month or not? Because yeah, there's a lot of risk involved with that. But I think the upside, the fact that I'm able to change people's minds about creepy crawly animals, and I can show people how interesting the world actually is, I think that that's worth the risk of failing, of, you know, if the channel gets demonetized or the people just lose interest in the brand. Like, you know, nothing's forever. I know that this isn't going to be like, I would love to do these videos for decades, but I know that like the typical shelf life of a YouTube channel is not decades. So, you know, I know that I have to pivot eventually, but as long as I'm in it, I want to do my best. And the wins that I have are so much better than the wins I could have had in any other career, that it makes the risk of failing worth it, I guess. And I think the biggest thing is, only to the listener, the only thing you can know what's worth failing at. I can't sit here and be like, well, this is the exact framework that I would use to prove that this risk is worth it. Only you can know if you want the thing bad enough that you're willing to risk failing at it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I can really say.
I always love like how in your videos you'll be sitting there talking about how scary something is, you know, like how it could kill 100,000 men with a bite, and I turn around, you know, I look at you and you're wearing like a short sleeve t-shirt and a pair of shorts, and you're kind of like, you know, you're pulling up rocks and that, and you look across and you're only wearing a pair of boots and a pair of shorts, and you're like, does he realize he could be wearing like, you know, like certain protective gear and stuff? And I think that's what we associate with you, resonate with you, because you're actually just like the guy going out and finding it in his backyard. You know, you're not having to like tons of equipment and, oh, we need to do this and that. It's just like, you could go out and do this in your backyard. You might not find.
I actually love those comments.
You know,
I love getting those comments about. I love getting the comments about like what I'm wearing, because I mean this shirt, for example, I've had this shirt for 10 years. Like, people are like, oh, this guy must be sponsored by Nike or something. Like, no, I just have a lot of Nike stuff because I've been an athlete all my life, and a lot of my shirts I've had for like 10 years. Like, it's better being used in a video than in a landfill. But it's like, people are so quick to go like, oh, this guy is not safety first or whatever. I'm like, dude, like people used to live out here, like the desert, the jungle, like people used to live here and they definitely weren't in snake boots. They weren't in, reinforced pants. They were barefoot in like loincloths and stuff. Like
Lying on the
people
floor
used
in
to actually,
caves and stuff. Yeah.
like people used to live in these areas, like before the Europeans came here and wiped everyone out. Like people used to live out here and they did not dress in armor or snake boots to go out here. They were a part of the landscape and they knew to respect the wildlife there, but they weren't like overly afraid of it. I'm like, I don't know if you know Star Wars or not, but it's like, I feel like the only thing that would satisfy some people is if I had a full suit of Beskar or something to go out and look for these animals. Like nothing short of Kevlar vests and chainmail.
So like the
But I'm like,
Mandalorian
dude,
and all that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, dude, like in a lot of these cases, the most important thing for safety is mobility. Like I am more mobile, like, and also like temperature conservation. You know how hot long sleeve shirts are and long sleeve pants in some of these places? Like I sweat a lot. And I've known that for a long time. Like I would rather be as thermoregulated as possible with short sleeves and shorts than be losing excess water that I don't need to be losing when I'm out here hiking.
And I suppose with a long sleeve and that, it could actually get the animal stuck in it or wrapped in it or.
Mm-hmm. It's also more real estate. So if something were to go up my sleeve, if I'm keeping it here, there's no sleeves for it to go up. If it's caught in my sleeve, that's where it would bite or sting, and that could be bad. But also, I mean, just like being able to be light on my feet and aware of my surroundings, that's safer than any snake boots or gear that you can bring out there. So like for me, it's like I want to just go out and hike. I'm going to go out in the actual clothes that I would wear. Like this is a shirt that I'm wearing, like unironically today. I'm just like, this is the shirt I'm wearing today because it's a nice breathable shirt that I've had for years. I don't need to go out and buy a new wardrobe when I have shirts that last 10 years. And it also just happens to work really well for hiking. And I'm like, well, this is the shirt that I happen to have on today. I'm going to stick the camera out and film while I'm in the shirt that I have on today. So
I do love that comment. It's like, it's better to be in a video than in a landfill. And I think that's so true. It's like, you don't need all this specialist equipment. You can literally make a video. You can literally make a channel with just yourself, your camera, and whatever your subject matter is. Are you okay for time? Because I have pages of questions left.
I'm good to go for a little bit longer. Yeah.
One thing I did love was your attitude of like, this thing's terrifying. I'm going to let it bite me. How do you break down between what's basically, how do we judge how scary an animal is? Are we looking at the scarcity of the animal? If it's a wet, dry bite, the venom, the toxicity, how do you rate it on the scale of badass? Because you've got tears in your video, and I love your legendary series.
Oh yeah, I haven't done that in a while, the legendary stuff. But the actual tiers, like the bite tiers and the sting tiers. So the way I had like actual qualifiers for this. F tier, it's like your typical like F to S tier for a bite. An F tier bite or sting is basically it's incapable of biting or stinging. It can't bite or sting, so it's an F tier. D tier is it can bite or sting, but it's basically unnoticeable. Like you'll notice maybe you got like, oh, there's something there, but it's not consequential at all. C tier is, and it has to do less with toxicity and more again with just what the experience of being bitten or stung by that thing would be, because there are things that are massively toxic that still wouldn't mess you up that bad. Like certain ants and stuff are more toxic than basically most of the world's venomous snakes. So the venom is like ridiculously potent, but there's so little venom that it hurts. You'll feel that sting, but it's not like bad. So like a C tier sting or bite would be, okay, that actually, I felt that. Maybe I even have a welt or something from it, but it's not like consequential. There's no symptoms that spread. It's just oh wow, yeah, that was a bite. With a B tier, you have, okay, that was actually painful. Like, wow, that really hurt. But that's about all there is to it. Like, it hurts a lot. Maybe you have some localized swelling, some localized aches or pains, but nothing like serious. A tier is where we get into what I would consider medically significant, but not lethal. So it's like, okay, that is a proper bite. You might have some aches and pains downstream from the bite, maybe even some delocalized symptoms. Like I would consider a black widow spider to be an A tier bite from a spider, because it's not going to kill you for the most part, but it's going to make you wish you were dead for a few hours. A brown recluse bite, typically not conclusive, not a problem at all, but some of them can get pretty bad. You can have some systemic symptoms from those. You can have localized necrosis. On the higher end of them, they're pretty bad, so I would say they're probably worth A tier. S tier. So the reason people got on me for that spider bite tier list, they're like, why didn't you put anything in S tier? I'm like, because this is a US based tier list, not a world based tier list. Nothing in the US is typically going to kill you. Spiders that I would put in the S tier of spider bites are the Brazilian wandering spider. That thing can kill you in hours if you're not treated, and if it's a full wet bite. If you get bitten by a Sydney funnel web, they're not as toxic as the wandering spiders, but they have a lot of venom, and I almost compare their bite to that of a venomous snake than a spider, because they're a big spider, a lot of venom, and that venom is very toxic. So it can, I mean, there are cases of people being unconscious in 15 minutes from a Sydney funnel web.
Does S tier stand for shit? I've just got bitten by a
S tier. So it's based on this old ranking system from like MMO games that a channel called Tier Zoo uses. A through F are like your typical tiers, A being usually your best, but S is like special tier. So it's like a step above A. Really, like, so like with like video game characters, it'd be like your A tier guys are typically your best characters, but like there's some super rare, super special, super broken characters that make it into S tier.
Yeah.
With bites, I'm like, okay, these are the bites that are just totally broken, like totally bad. If you're bitten by this, you're just done. With snakes, I would say there's even an S plus tier, because there's a lot of snakes that can kill you, and there's a lot of snakes that can kill you really fast in really gnarly ways. So like a rattlesnake, your typical rattlesnake, I would say is an S tier, but like something like an inland taipan from Australia, probably S plus, because that thing will kill you in minutes. Like,
it's not going to be a fun time if you survive either.
Yeah, because you're going to have permanent damage. You're going to have like you're going to be, some guys, if you get bit by those things, you're crippled for life, or you're in a coma for months before you finally come back, and you're never fully back to where you were before you got bit. Like, there are some things you just do not want to test the bite of. You just don't.
Because that's what I always found puzzling, was how some people would be talking about toxicity, venom, and yields and all these sort of things, and some people would say, I don't even know the difference between venomous and poisonous, and you're thinking, really? How does the spider or the snake bite? Because there's dry and there's wet, and wet obviously is when it injects the venom and sort of stuff. But how does the venom or the poison kind of affect us in different ways? Is it kind of sort of congealing the blood cells? Is it the attacking certain things? Like how? Because these things are designed to paralyze these the prey to eat. How does it affect humans that you find?
So it really depends on. So there's a lot to unpack in that question.
There always is for me. Sorry.
how the venoms work is going to be based on typically what the animal has evolved to eat. So, a lot of times, for example, snakes that are reptile specialists are going to have a neurotoxin, so it's going to attack the central nervous system of their prey, because reptiles have a lot more of a slower metabolism typically than mammals do. So you want something that can just paralyze them. Whereas mammal hunters, like the rattlesnakes, they're going to use more of a hemotoxin, a blood attacking toxin, to basically kill warm-blooded prey that have a fast metabolism, a high heart rate. Because if that gets in their bloodstream, it's going to congeal the blood, or in some cases it'll either congeal and clot, Some cases it'll actually obliterate the blood, so the blood is like thinner, but it's like it's particulate now. So it's all the blood cells are just being burst. They can't carry oxygen anymore, and that particle matter gums up their organs, causing multi-system organ failure. So how it again, it depends on which venom you're talking about, but typically, whatever the venom does to its prey, you can pretty much guess it's the same thing going to happen to humans. So if it's a chemotoxic bite that's going to attack the blood cells, the way it kills its prey is the same way it's going to kill us, because those hemotoxic venoms are evolved for mammals. We are mammals. So, you're looking at either our blood is going to be clotted and you're going to see necrosis and infection that spreads and kills us slowly and painfully, or you're going to see that hemolysis, where the blood cells are destroyed and turned into particulate matter. And that particulate matter clogs up your organs and stuff, your kidneys, your liver, sending those organs into failure, which kills you. If it's a neurotoxin, you have two types of neurotoxins. Typically, you have your excitatory neurotoxins, which basically, in the case of like widow spiders, when they bite something, it just lights all of their nervous system on fire. It's an extremely painful bite, but it also kills the prey because it basically sends the prey into shock. There's just so many muscles and things contracting because everything is just on fire and overstimulated that they just die, right? For an excitatory neurotoxin on a human, that level of neurotoxin can overstimulate our heart, cause our heart to fail, can cause your diaphragm to seize. So your diaphragm is paralyzed, but not in the sense that you can't control it because it's like the nerves are turned off. The nerves are so overstimulated that everything is just like seizing and contracting. And that's what would kill you if a really bad widow bite were to happen or something. With things like cobras and mambas, they have a more of a paralytic. So it's going to disable your prey. And that's going to essentially attach to nerves and cut off signaling. So you can't signal your diaphragm to breathe. You can't breathe because you're paralyzed. So then you die from that. But you basically go to sleep in some cases. Like some of those more gnarly elapids, if you're bitten, they're actually not unpleasant from what we can tell, because they're like an anesthetic almost. They paralyze and just kind of disable you, so you are unconscious and then you die. So I'm sure it's not like a walk in the park. We don't know, because people who have died from it, they're dead, so we can't ask them how the death was. But it depends again on how the toxin works. And then venom versus poison venom is injected. So you have spines, fangs, a stinger, in centipede's case, modified legs that have spikes on the end that can inject venom. Poison is ingested or like secreted. So it's something that can be like sprayed. It can be in the skin, in the slime glands of the skin for certain amphibians. And if you eat or touch the animal, the poison is then absorbed through your skin or through mucous membranes in your digestive system, and that's where it kills you. And it's the same thing. You have irritants. You have things that just are designed. They're not designed to kill. They're designed to just hurt and burn or sting. You have things that are like noxious, that just taste or smell really bad, so that kind of gets you to back off. That's like on the low end. And then just like with venoms, you have neurotoxins. You have things like, certain species of newt that are really poisonous, and if you eat them, it will basically paralyze and kill you. Certain fish, same thing. They have like glands in their body that if you eat them, it's just so toxic, it just paralyzes your whole body, shuts your central nervous system down, and like you just, unless you get like antidote really quick, or like you're put on a ventilator until your liver can process it. And even then, sometimes it's just so toxic that your body can't handle it, and it's just too much, and good night,
Because that's what I love about it. Was everybody would always say like about your lingering, your bite was there any lingering effect in that? And I was always thinking, A, did you have any superpowers? But B, it was always kind of like, what did you notice any changes in your diet? Because you used to do a lot of cross country when you were younger. did you find that kind of your fitness or your heart health, did that help you, do you think? And also, did you notice any kind of changes in what you craved? Like, were there certain vitamins, minerals that your body kind of needed, or is your diet in a certain way that you think it helps you with the bites, that it almost gives you your kind of internal armor to do these kind of things? Do you find that you're healthier now that you've had all these bites, that you've kind of absorbed, like Bruce Lee absorbed the good stuff and got rid of the bad stuff? Or is it still just, don't do this, let me do it?
It's definitely still a don't do this. I mean, I'm definitely healthier than most. My diet is terrible. But I get away with it because I'm healthier than most. So I don't know that diet really helps. I didn't notice I craved anything different. When I am bitten by spiders, what I try to do, when I'm bitten or stung by anything, what I try to do is hydrate a lot, because it'll dilute. You just, like, the more hydrated I am, the more it'll dilute whatever toxin is inside me. So like I just push a lot of fluids. But I push fluids anyway because I run so much and I sweat so much that I just am in the habit of drinking a ton of water. With any kind of like cravings or anything post bite, I really didn't notice any differences. A really bad bite the day after, I might be a little bit fatigued, but that was only with like the red widow and the giant centipede. I was a little fatigued the next day. In terms of like immunity, so that's a fun question that I get sometimes. And the truth with immunity is you'd have to expose yourself to one specific species of venom over and over and over and over and over again for your body to actually become immune, or to like become more resistant to future venoms or anything. I've done a lot of bite tests, both intentional and accidental, on the channel, but in the grand scheme of time, I haven't done enough of them for my body to really have any like special immunity or anything from that. And that's something that I can back up with my medical background. I'm like, yeah, there's not really enough evidence that our adaptive immune system, what are you doing, dude? There's not enough evidence that our adaptive immune system can react that quickly to it. It's not like a virus where it's like totally systemic. A lot of these times the bites are just so localized that the immune system is just, it's the local immune system just kind of making sure that there's no invaders, localized inflammation, stuff like that. My body there's not a big enough stimulus to my body for it to need to adapt and learn to deal with venom in the future. So it's not like I have like walking anti-venom or something, because I'd have to be exposed over and over and over again to the same type of venom to build an active immunity to that venom. So I wouldn't say that my immunity or health is anything special due to the venom tests. And honestly, like it's like, again, I wouldn't encourage people to go out and just test the bites of spiders. That's more my own morbid curiosity and my desire to myth bust. So like, there's really only 2, maybe 3 spiders that I'm still interested in taking the bite from. And those are false widows, because I'm curious to see how they stack up against real widows. The yellow sac spider, because that's one people are losing their minds over. They think it's super deadly, but it's all the research that I've seen is it's not. Potentially the white-tail spider from Australia, because it's like their brown recluse. They say it has these terrible necrotic bites, but again, all the research shows that it does not cause necrosis, so it's a myth. I'm like 50-50 on this one. I'm somewhat curious to see what some of the smaller wandering spider species can do. Like here in the US, our biggest wandering spider is the Florida wandering spider. It is related to the Brazilian wandering spider, but it's much smaller. And there's a lot of debate on whether or not it would be considered dangerous to people. Conventional wisdom is that the genus they belong to is not medically significant, but that one is big enough, and I've heard enough reports that it might be somewhat toxic. Not like lethally or like a threat to your life, just if you got bit, it would really suck. So that's one that I'm curious to maybe test, even if it does suck, just to see for my own personal curiosity if those things are as dangerous as some people make them out to be. But that one's like, I don't know. But there's very few spiders left that I'm actually curious to test. Because like I said, I just don't think that people should be taking bites from these things unless there's a very, very good purpose for it. And I think that myth busting in the venue of what I do it's important enough that I'm willing to do it. But most of the time, like, I don't see a need for it.
I would add a few veries in there. There must be a very, very, very good reason for doing it,
Very, very, very good reason.
I see a lot of these people who, they'll show videos of them milking snakes for anti-venom and for hospitals and stuff like that. And I can understand those videos are like amazing. And then you see this guy going, I'm going to get bitten by such and such to see what it's like, like the Jackass style of video. And you're like, yeah, that's just asking for trouble. What about conservation? How much of that are you kind of thinking about bringing in? Because, there must be certain plants that we could introduce that would help us. There must be kind of certain charities that you could go and work with. Is there species or habitats that you're concerned about? How much can we truly do as a person? How much can we give to charity financially or supportive? But how much can we make a difference in society, considering how many of these companies are destroying habitats like the rainforest, etc.? What can we do to help animals going forward?
So the biggest thing is awareness. I think, in general, there's this concept in economics called the invisible hand. And it's like whatever incentives you put in place are kind of the way things are going to shift. Right now, there isn't an incentive to conserve habitat. It's too profitable still. It's too profitable to destroy habitat. And until it's profitable to conserve habitat more than it is to destroy it, we're going to continue to see the destruction of our ecosystems. Like, a bit of a dark side of what I do, there's one thought process that I have. The reason that I'm so keen on telling the stories of some of these animals, especially the ones that no one's heard of, is because I know that in my lifetime, there are going to be animals that I have filmed that are going to go extinct. Like, I am very aware that there are things that I have filmed that will be gone in 20 years. Specifically, so bit of spoilers, because this is a snake that I've been after for like ages, and it's been kind of a meme on the channel. But the eastern diamondback rattlesnake in Florida, we actually were able to film them finally this past September. There are an estimated 3% of their historic numbers left in the wild. And it's a combination of people killing them because they're rattlesnakes and destroying their habitat because they're not like... There are certain species out west that can live pretty much anywhere, but the eastern diamondback specifically needs very specific habitat conditions to survive. And once again, it's very profitable to bulldoze the habitat they live in to put up housing developments or supermarkets or things like that. And it's like, the ultimate thing we have to do is we have to acknowledge that human growth is not sustainable anymore. Like, we see a lot of pushes like, these different countries and stuff, their birth rate's declining. I'm like, I get that your economy doesn't like that. Like, even in the US or like things like that, they're like, the economy is going to be, in trouble if we have an aging population. But I'm like, what's going to be worse for the economy if we keep destroying the planet? And unfortunately, the human population cannot grow to infinity. And we're starting to see how there's this thing in ecology called carrying capacity. There's a number that a population will grow towards, and if it passes that, it's going to crash because the environment can't support that many individuals past a certain number. I am of the belief that humans have hit or passed their carrying capacity. We're at the point where we do need to pull back how much we're trying to grow, because unfettered growth is going to just continue to destroy the habitat, and that's the scary truth. What people can do on an individual basis is just raise awareness for creatures. Because yes, you can put money into charities and things, but you don't have a lot of control over where that money is actually going, unless you're doing it yourself. It's not that I don't trust charities. I do. It's just that, again, like until it is more profitable to conserve, charity work can only do so much. So what we really need to do is we need to shift awareness. We need to get people to care about these things, and we need to build a culture that is more about coexisting with nature than it is about exploiting it. And the better we can foster that culture through videos like these, through conversations like these, through just going out as a person and just appreciating what's around you and taking stock of what's around you. And you'll probably even see, the more you take stock, you'll see how other things are declining. Like, fireflies are about to be put on the endangered species list here in the US. Fireflies, like the lightning bugs, like as a kid, they were everywhere. Terrifying. And they're now going to be on the endangered species list. Like, as a kid, monarch butterflies were everywhere, and they've been on and off the endangered species list several times in the last decade. And a lot of it's just due to habitat destruction. Like, this isn't even pesticides. This isn't even people killing them. It's just the habitat they need to live is just not there. So they can't reproduce. They're just, these animals aren't just like magical creatures that can exist anywhere. There's conditions they need to survive, and those conditions are becoming scarcer and scarcer. So as it's just like it's the economy of the natural world. If the resources that they need to stink bug, if the resources that they need to survive are getting scarcer, then the animals are going to get scarcer. And so we have to just develop a culture of being aware of the natural world, being aware of the things we share our space with, and learning how to better share our space with those things. Like, one city in the US that I think does it really well is Tucson, Arizona. It's a pretty vibrant, busy city, but if you look, it's built into the habitat. There's actually habitat corridors and stuff that go through that city. It's not just urban, like, gridlock. It's built into the landscape, and people will actually see Gila monsters in their backyards. Which is a crazy looking lizard. They'll see rattlesnakes in their backyards. They'll see endangered species walking through their backyard because there's actually habitat for them to use, and people have learned to respect nature there. Mm. If we can bring that kind of psychology to more of the world, we can kind of have our cake and eat it too, right? We can have our nice things, we can have our big cities, but we need to make sure that there's space for the other things that we live with to live as well, because we need to live alongside them, not just uproot them and then be like, well, why are all the fireflies gone? I'm like, because we've destroyed all the wetlands they need to breed. Like, it's not really rocket science. It's just, we need to be more conscientious about where we're building and how we're building. And that's going to come with people caring and changing of culture, because you change the culture, you change the incentives, and it's like a more holistic approach of getting corporations to stop is going to come when people care, because right now they don't. Like, no. They say they do, but they really don't, because they don't know.
No, that was very well put and beautifully put. I mean, I think I interviewed Forrest Scanati and a few other people a while back, and we talked a lot about conservation, and it was that kind of how people only miss something when it's gone. Forrest has this amazing series on, is it extinct or not? And he'll go and show, and it's like, imagine getting to the point where people only start caring about an animal when it's basically on its last legs. And we can't rip out the only area that this animal can live in. We can live anywhere, basically. But these animals need, like you're saying, specific conditions, specific situations. And I think that's why it's so vital that we have people like yourself who are going and showing these animals that you don't need to kill it. It's not going to kill you. You're just encroaching on its habitat. But if you understand it and move it here, and fail-safes are ways to catch it and release it without harming it, it can live its life. It doesn't want to come near you. It doesn't want to hurt you. You have to really, basically twat it about to kind of get it to bite you, as a technical term. And I think it's so sad that we've got to this point where we're kind of going, oh, I did like that. but we're liking the pretty things. We're keeping the panda, but we're getting rid of the animals that scare us, which could potentially hold cancer treatments, or like it could potentially help in a number of diseases. That we're getting rid of things because of how pretty it is. And it's just we're the generation. We're actually the worst predator of all, because we destroy things and based on looks, and we care more about social media likes than an animal that could potentially that's keeping a certain habitat or our fish stocks or our. It's like, look at how we're overpopulating the fish. It's like Faroe Islands, how they catch whales. Because it's just what we did. It's our culture. But people are trying to stop them because they're overfishing at times. And we have all these kind of different things of culture versus necessity, culture versus nature. And I like how you're bringing this education to people. But what have you noticed about the dark side of YouTube? Because your channel exploded. I think you went to you were saying about 100,000 basically since COVID. That's mental, and it's very well deserved. And you're so pally with your audience that you're always going, "Oh, that's a great video. Oh, that could help." And what about this? And you have a two-way conversation with them. But what have you noticed is the dark part of YouTube? Is it suddenly you have people constantly following you, hitting you up on social media, judging you? What's the bad side of this, or have you found anything yet?
So I've definitely heard of worse. So one thing is, you're not fully in control of your results. You can be within. It's not that you're back to the luck discussion. It's not that you're lucky if you succeed, unlucky if you fail, but it's YouTube gives you revenue because it chooses to give you revenue. So there's there's always this level of uncertainty month to month of where's my income coming from. Is my RPM going to be good enough this month? Is my RPM going to be bad this month? If for whatever reason YouTube's not recommending my videos this month, you have a decrease in ad revenue, and that could be that can be very stressful living. You kind of live on the knife's edge. And for me, it's YouTube's doing quite well right now. I have visions to take it further. Right now I'm looking at, what is my path to 1 million subscribers? What is my path to 10 million subscribers? And I believe these are engineerable goals, but it's at my current stage, I would say I'm pretty much a mid-sized channel. I think I ran the numbers. It's at my channel size, I'm technically in the top 0.5% of channels, but it's within the YouTube sphere. It's I know that there is a much bigger ceiling of where I could be, and where I'm at currently, there's a lot of times where I can feel over leveraged, right? So it's I'm a one-man show. I have help in the field sometimes with people that I collaborate with, but it's I always laugh when I see emails. They're like, "Hi, my Wild Backyard team," and I'm like, "It's me. Hi."
I know that feeling.
Because I am the editor, I am the writer. I don't make the music, but I license all the music from different sites and stuff, and I have to choose which track goes where. I do all the audio engineering. I do the research for my videos. I do all the hunting. I have to go find these things in the field. I have to do logistics for every trip. For Australia, I had to read pages and pages of legislation on what is legal to touch there and what is illegal to touch. So I knew what permits to apply for or what guides to hire to make sure that I can legally do what I do in Australia without getting in trouble, without setting a bad example.
I suppose it's if you don't have content or something to film, you don't have content to put out, and
yeah. There is so much you have to do behind the scenes, and that's the thing I talk about, this stuff, the marketing, all the strategy, all the analytics, what goes behind all the decisions of what videos to make, how to make them. It is the dark side of YouTube is you can't turn it off. You really can't turn it off, and it's gotten me in trouble in my relationships. It's gotten me in trouble in family dynamics sometimes, because there's times where I will see the people that I collaborate with in the field. on like production trips, they see more of me in a year sometimes than my family does. And it's like, that's what's necessary at my current channel size and the team of one, but the team size that I have is like, that's what's necessary. And I'm working on scaling beyond that so that I can free up more of my time. But it is a very monumental lift to do that. And for every single channel, it's different. You know, the way the exact steps that I took to build my channel to 180,000 subscribers is totally different than you're going to take to build your channel to 180,000 subscribers, or someone else might take to build their channel to 180,000 subscribers. Like the core principles are similar. Like the things, what will work and what won't work will be similar. There'll be patterns that you can follow, but the exact steps will be totally different. And so it's like you kind of have to bullshit your way through until you find what works. And then you have to, each time you're building to a new scale, it's the same thing. It's like, I need to kind of just bullshit my way through until I figure out what works in the next scale. And, you know, you can throw strategy and stuff at it. Like, it's not like you're just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. There's definitely like a method to the madness, but it is very stressful. It is very, very stressful. And it's one of those things where I wouldn't give this up for anything. Like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. But it's like, when I preface that by saying, make sure you know that this is what you want before you get into it, because it is so much harder than people think it is. And like, you have, you know, it's not like, oh, I want to be a doctor, right? People understand what it means to be a doctor. It's hard work. And I'm not saying that it's not hard work to be a doctor, because it's very much hard work to be a doctor, but people understand it, right? They understand. So people can relate to you if you say you're busy because of med school. People can relate to you because you say you're busy because I have work at this finance firm or something. If you work in banking, like, people can relate, they can understand, they have frame of reference. People don't have a frame of reference for YouTube. They don't. So it's a very lonely journey with the exception of people you meet along the way who are also doing it, because saying you're busy because you're working on a video, it doesn't sound like work to them. They're like, oh, you're working on a video. Okay, well, you can pause that and come hang out. I'm like, no, I can't. I have deadlines. You know? So that's like, for me, what the biggest dark side. But, you know, having what I've seen friends of mine deal with is, you know, my buddy Jack, he is getting completely destroyed by YouTube right now. He gets demonetized on videos that shouldn't be demonetized. He gets, you know, there's this restricted mode thing where, like, if YouTube deems your video as more mature or more risky or something, they will not even age restrict it. It's like it's like a shadow ban, actually. They'll not show your video to viewers who are on restricted modes, like schools, parental controls, things like that. But because they're not showing you to those, they will also restrict your impressions and how much reach your video actually has. So even though I would say Jack is a more talented presenter than I am, his channel is not performing as well as mine because YouTube is actively holding him back.
Yeah.
And if YouTube decided to do that to me, I would have no control over fixing that, because that's all on YouTube's end. And so there's definitely a real thing of, especially if you're doing YouTube, and this is something I'm guilty of, but I'm working on fixing, is you have to figure out a way to monetize outside of YouTube as fast as possible, because you don't want all of your eggs riding on a platform that you actually don't control.
I can change this algorithm.
YouTube is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place, and like, it has its faults, it has its, you know, problems, but I still think it's the best place for creators right now. But it's still not perfect. And, you know, attention is great. The more attention you can get on your videos, like, attention is the new gold rush. So they say on all those business podcasts and things. But like, it's true. The more you can get and capture attention, the more influence you have, and the more likely you can sell them things. Like, projects that I'm working on outside of YouTube, I'm writing a science fiction novel series. I'm writing different, like, other projects. I'm hoping to get some, like, TV shows pitched at some point that are wildlife related, some that are wildlife related, some that are not wildlife related. Like,
you'd be awesome at them,
you know, and all those shows and creative projects, like, I know that they're things that my audience would like, even though they're not wildlife related, because my because my audience is into nerd culture and into those kind of things, I know they'll still enjoy it. And I know that I can sell them those things because it will really resonate with the kind of content that they want to consume. And by building audience and building attention, I can still monetize that attention with those projects, but I have to have time to actually build those projects. And so that's where the scale on the YouTube channel comes from. I need to be able to hire people to help me make videos so that I can free up my time to build other projects. And that's, again, it's one of those double-edged swords with YouTube. I am very ADHD, so I like being busy. I like having a lot of detail in the kind of things that I'm working on. And I like those things to be things that I'm passionate about. But on the flip side, it's like, yes, it's very hard. And people are like, it can turn your passion into a job sometimes. And that's very true. There are aspects of this year on YouTube for me. What happens if you can't find the stuff you're looking for, right? Like, what happens? It's like, well, you just burned thousands of dollars on a trip and you have nothing to show for it. And that's been, I have been on, oh man, I have been on at least four trips this year that were not productive. Like, I got a couple little videos out of them, but nothing super helpful. And like, that's demoralizing. Like I've had times on YouTube where it's frustrating because, videos aren't performing that great or whatever. Everybody has those times. But there's also times where if you physically cannot create content because you're not finding anything film worthy in the field, it's demoralizing. It's like, it's the most, like, you're just like, I'm doing everything right, but I'm not finding the stuff that I need to make these specific videos that I know will do well. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. So it's like, there absolutely is a lot of there's a lot of risk, and it's one of those things you have to really kind of think about what you're getting into before you get into this, because it's very unforgiving, but it's unforgiving, but it's also very rewarding. So it's again, that
I can certainly understand, because I do it all as well, and it's editing, and then people say to you like, "What do you mean you're doing a podcast tonight?" But they see watching TV as like what a mainstream hobby is, whereas they'll listen to a podcast, but the thought of a friend of theirs doing a podcast is like, "Don't be so stupid," and you're like, and it's hard to kind of make people understand that this is a career. The way OnlyFans has become for some girls. Let's not go down that road, because that kind of industry bugs me about how, you could go on about them taking advantage of people, their money and all that. Who knows? But let's not go into there. But I can imagine you going out and it'll maybe take you 3 days of filming to get maybe enough for a 20-minute video, because of catching the animals, finding it, because these things will want to stay as far away from us as possible. And doing these videos, and I was going to ask you about, you've got a beautiful relationship with your siblings. Your parents must think you're crazy at times when you're telling them about getting bitten by this and that. You have all these amazing collaborations and all that. But what do you do to kind of downtime away from this? How do you shut this off? Because it's something I struggle with. I'm constantly thinking of video ideas, SEO, changing titles, this podcast, prepping, listening to podcasts to prep for such and such. How do you switch off and just be you as a person, not you as a content creator?
So the short answer is, when I figure that out, I'll let you know. I think it's important to have hobbies and or projects. I'm a very project oriented person. Like, I don't like just having hobbies for the sake of having hobbies. I like to have things I'm working towards. So for me, like running, right? Like, the last 2 years of YouTube have been just so busy, I haven't been able to train. So I got really out of shape. So my next project is, I want to be able to get back to running a 5K in under 17 minutes again. I want to be able to get back to running, the mile in under 5 minutes again. And then I want to go from there and get back to the competitive times I was running in college. But it's like, I know where I want to be fitness wise. So I have a project to work on the side, and I give myself these things that are not monetized. They're not business. I don't have, life or death stakes riding on them if I fail. If I fail at getting back in shape, it's like annoying, but like, okay, I can, like, no one's going to like take my house, or, I'm not going to not pay bills if I push my goal back another year. It's like, yeah, I'd like, from a goal setting perspective, I want to hold myself accountable to those goals, but it's like, it's not the end of the world if I miss them. So it's like the other projects, it's just something to escape from, helps me kind of keep myself sharp too. Cause it's like, okay, this is an intentional rest thing. And I think the biggest thing too is like finding systems. I'm sure you've probably watched Ali Abdaal on YouTube, big productivity guy. I love how he systemizes things, and I love finding ways to systemize my process in a way that's works for me. Because again, like my content is so different than his that my systems are going to look super different from his. But it's like, okay, like I have reduced my upload schedule because my data shows I don't need to be uploading weekly. Most of my reduction in upload schedule was because I realized over the last 90 days and over the 90 days before that, I tend to have 10 to 20 videos that drive 80% or more of my traffic. It's like the old 80-20 rule, but like on steroids. It's like 10% of my videos or less are driving 80% or more of my traffic. So if only a handful of videos are actually driving traffic and driving results, why am I breaking my back to do a video every week? Especially when some of those videos, I watch them and I'm like, it was a cool animal, but this concept was kind of missing something for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I do 2 videos a month that have concepts that I'm like, that's good, I love that one, and I feel really good posting it, and it's also a stronger video that performs better, it creates positive feedback loops with my audience and with my own workflow that I just feel good making it, my viewers feel good watching it, and everybody wins. And it's like, I've also reduced my workload by like 50%. And it's like, so now, instead of grinding, I can work intentional rest into my schedule. I can say, okay, past 5 p.m. I'm not working today, or past 9 p.m. I'm not working today. Depends on the week. Like this month I have to work later because I have to get 2 months worth of videos out because I'm in Australia for most of the next month. But it's like I can build these intentional rest blocks in where I'm literally not allowing myself to do work. I'm allowed to think about it. I'm allowed to think about work because sometimes if you're passionate about it, if you're excited about a project, like don't force yourself not to think about something if you're excited about it. Cause like, what's the point? If you're excited about it, just be excited about it. But like forcing yourself to rest is important because it keeps you sharp. So what I'll do is I'll have like certain video games I want to play. Like I want to beat this one video game. It's still goal-based, but it's like, these are projects that I'm doing. Like I want to watch this season of a show. It's still a goal, right? I want to finish this season so I can, watch this whole thing through. There's an end goal in mind, but it's like, I'm assigning myself leisure tasks so that when I have this intentional rest, I have to change gears. I have to do something that is not work so that I can breathe. I'm not perfect at it. It's not like a religious thing that I really stick to all the time. But when I'm able to do it, it's like I feel so much better when I'm getting these rest systems in there too. Because like I said, it's like being an athlete, right? Half of the battle in athletics is recovery. You need sleep. You need to eat properly. You need to, just as much as being on in the gym or on the road if you're running, you need to have time off of the muscle groups you're working so they can recover, so they can build. It's the same thing with creative. You can treat your brain like a muscle. Treat your craft like a sport. You have practice, you have training, you have output, but you can't do it 24/7 or you're going to actually see negative returns.
No, that makes a lot of sense because just now, one of the things I'm doing is trying to figure out how to make a system of writing blog posts. I've got, templates for sending out emails, for links, for invites, for how to get guests, how to move them on, how to record, how to back it up and all that. But when it comes to actually producing it, I haven't figured out a way to make it fast to produce the show notes, the blogs, the written bits of it. And that is where I struggle, because my OCD and intrusive thoughts all immediately go, oh, no, you're not good enough. Oh, no, that is going to suck. Just da-da-da-da. And I put it off again and again. And like you're saying, is I don't have a system for not burning myself out, to make myself to actually enjoy. And that's a bad side of YouTube and content creation, is you spend your whole day, your whole week, your whole year thinking about it. You never switch off. And you can be in conversations at parties and people are going, hey, come on, get in the moment, because you can see you thinking about it in your head, and that's what I try to explain to people. It's
that exact moment.
And you're sitting on your phone and people are going, stop watching whatever it is, and you're prepping for the next thing, or you're writing Evernote and reminders to yourself, or half my emails are things to myself saying, edit that, add that, do that. And it's so difficult to live in the real world once you've been in this world. And I suppose that's the bad. And you're just reaching the start of the journey. You're nowhere near the pinnacle. You could have videos on fungi, animals, venom. Even I think I would argue that people would watch your videos on your series of running and getting fit for yourself, because people, you know your audience, and they would like that because how you would style it. But people also like you. So they would watch your videos and say, hey, wait a minute here. I would watch that because they like you and they want to see what else you do in addition to you, and learn more about you. And I'd love to see, like maybe a video on the animals that you have in your home, how the animals that you do as part of your fostering out and stuff like that. And learning more about you just as a person, like your habits, your Ali Abdaal kind of approach to life, your Tim Ferriss approach to life. So there's so much. I think you're just getting there. And it's that shutting off of... I had a girlfriend who said... I was writing a James Bond series at the time, and she said, I'll have to dress like James Bond to get attention from you. So she put a shirt on, and she said, do I have to wear a shirt to get you to come over and spend time with me? Or I can't remember. It was something... There's a more X-rated version of that, but let's not go into that. But I was kind of just at that moment of like... I was so focused in that I had forgotten what was happening in real life. At Christmas time, I can remember sitting writing notes to myself about a video. And I'm sure you've done that, birthdays. And you're just like, I'd rather be in front of a computer than doing X or whatever. And it's a slippery slope. One of the questions I did have...
It's funny because if it was like gambling or something, people would say you have a problem. If it's something that people see as a vice, they think you have a problem almost. But like when you're building a career, it's like, there's a lot of times people think of the creative careers, especially, as like gambling. It's like, well, how do you know this is going to work? You sound like... There were times where before I made it, I was like, I sound like a gambling addict. I sound like a gambling addict trying to get this to work.
Try to get that fixed.
So I really need this to work.
Yeah.
wait, you're going to ask a question?
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, like, it's like that fix, isn't it? It's like, that video only did that, but I know I could fix that. I'm going to change my SEO. I'm going to change the title. And you see, it's almost like people are going, I just need one more. I just need one more. I just need that one winner, and I'll be back. I can make the money back. And you're like, but I want to get my... I can feel myself. Sometimes it's like the weight on you as well. But do you find... Because like people always say about the amazing collaborations you have. They always say about the videos you're doing, the series, the whole world of the ecosystem, and you're going to Australia, and you've got the whole world to tackle next. If you had to write out a list just now of alive or dead, your favourite collaboration that you could do, an animal that could be extinct, alive, almost mythical, whatever you wanted to do, what would this series be? Would it be Darwin, Irwin, which I noticed was quite interesting how a lot of the names are the same. Would it be a mythical creature that you've maybe seen in Star Trek or something? What would this perfect video for you encompass?
That's a hard one. I could think of a series. If I could collaborate with like Jeremy Wade from River Monsters, that would be insane.
Oh, it's a great show.
A lot of my storytelling is based on River Monsters. I loved the atmosphere that he had, and I loved kind of the same way that he was a lot more nonchalant about his expertise. Like, I'm a biologist. I study this stuff. I research this stuff pretty detailed, but I try not to be in like zookeeper clothes and stuff. Not just because it feels inauthentic to me, but it's also like I want to show people that I'm not this super educated expert. Like I downplay how much I know, but the point is to show them that I am relatable. And I liked how Jeremy Wade, like, yes, he's like a world-class angler, but the thing is he felt like a regular guy trying to answer a question in his videos and or in his shows. And I would love to make a show with Jeremy Wade, but like a River Monsters with, you know, more like the biggest or weirdest reptiles and creepy crawlies in the world. So like, you know, tracking down a Goliath bird eater in Brazil, tracking down a reticulated python in like Malaysia. So like sort of like River Monsters, but like forest monsters or something like the monsters that you find in the jungle, not in the river. You know, I would love to have some kind of show with, you know, David Attenborough where we go to like the bottom of the ocean and find like the weirdest and strangest creatures there. Like I'm actually working on for next year. I'm sort of trial running it with videos now. The recent Vinegaroon video is kind of how I want to structure single species type videos, or at least similar to that one. I want to start building a series on the channel that I'm calling, I'm the working title for it is Weird Planet, and it's going to cover weird and deadly creatures. But my goal is to introduce every video with what I would consider to be a normal version of the animal. So like if we're going after the largest centipede in the world, which is like down in South America. So I would start the video with a backyard centipede to show this is a centipede in your backyard. Here's what we know about centipedes as a whole.
Yeah.
Now let's go find this giant monster one. And the idea would be, it's kind of like we start in your backyard, start with something that's like a frame of reference, something you understand, and then go and find the extreme version of the animal. And then like, I get to kind of play with like, what's the extreme version mean? So it gives me license to cover a lot more animals than I would have thought that my channel would have covered. So like, my buddies and I were talking about like going diving with Humboldt squid at some point. And Humboldt squids are like one of the biggest squids in the world. I think the third biggest. And they absolutely see people as food. So the way you dive with them is you have to wear basically like stormtrooper armor while you're diving.
They wear like chainmail and all that.
Yeah, you have to wear actual armor to dive with them because they will kill you if you don't have armor on. And it's one of the scariest dives ever. You have to go out at night, but it's like super insane. How cool of a video would it be to go to start with like catching a little tiny squid and seeing a tiny squid like in a tide pool or something, just kind of swimming around. We learn about squid biology as a whole, and then we work our way up. So there's a journey component, like a story of like us going to go find the thing, but there's also a journey through the way that this Humboldt squid deviates from what a normal squid is to make it a giant predator of the deep. So you learn a lot about the animal, you learn a lot about the group of animals it belongs to, but you also go on this crazy journey because what I'm realizing I want to do more with the brand is I want to show how reality is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
You know, I want to show people how the natural world captures my imagination more than a lot of other things. And a lot of that is because there's so many weird creatures. It's like encountering actual mythological creatures in the real world. Like, you know, some of the arthropods that I find in South America or Australia or even here in the US, they're just so weird that it's like, it's hard to believe this is a real animal you're looking at sometimes. And so what I want to do is instead of just focusing only on that animal, I want to take the viewer on a journey that takes them from here's what a normal version of this thing looks like. Here's what you'd see in your backyard. And now let's go into like the secret world and find this mythological version of it. And here's why this thing is so weird. Here's what adaptations it needs. Here's why the environment has shaped it to be this way. So they'll learn a lot of things while still going on this kind of mythological fantasy sci-fi journey. And it speaks a lot to just the sort of goals that I have with the brand. And it speaks a lot to the kind of messaging that, again, my target viewer would really respond to. So it's like, it's a series I haven't launched yet, but it's like a series that I know intuitively will do well, because 6-year-old Spencer would have watched the hell out of that. And
I would watch that right now.
it's like, and I can market it with the titles and thumbnails. It's a very easy sell to the general audience, because like, okay, I can just do the most poisonous toad in the world.
Yeah.
People are like, why is it the most poisonous? What is it, deadly? Like, I want to click on this and find out. The most venomous insect.
People would pay a ton of money to see that sort of thing.
Yeah. And so I'm like, it's a format that clicks in my head. It's just, it's going to take a lot of research to actually deliver on it the way I want to. So it's like, it'll still be released twice a month, but it's like, for example, a chameleon, right? A chameleon is probably one of the weirdest lizards you could probably ever come across. But that makes me want to think about, well, the questions I have when I think about a chameleon is like, well, what makes lizards need to change color? How do they change color? What is actually happening at a cellular level? I think we need to explore that. But it's also like, what makes lizard biology unique from other groups of animals? Why is it a lizard that can change color like this and not an amphibian?
I mean, you could even do like a teaching platform on that, and people pay for exclusive access to that. That's an amazing idea.
So it's things like that. That's where that's like my vision for like future projects and stuff that I'm actually actively working on. But like, yeah, dream animal, dream collabs. I don't think there's a single dream animal besides maybe like really ridiculously rare species that there's not a single dream animal that I don't think I could probably pull off filming one day, which is a very ambitious claim, because there's a lot of stuff out there that's like rare, but I know that I surround myself with people who are better at finding stuff than I am. Like, I try to network with researchers. I try to network with people who are like conservationists and out in the field working on these things. I'm never going in the field blind. When we went to Florida this past month, we didn't have like a guide per se, but we were doing like ridiculous amount of research beforehand. So we knew what spots to go to. We knew what times and what temperature ranges to go during. And I mean, that made all the difference. Like, a snake that I've been looking for years, like you were saying earlier, like, a 20-minute video might take 3 days to film. This is a 20-minute video that took 2 years to film. Like, I've been out looking for this snake so many times, but all it took was just being right time of year, right time of day, right temperature range in the right spots. And we had all the research done, all the work done behind the scenes that led us to this catch of a giant rattlesnake that I've been looking for ages. And it just came out beautifully. So I'm like that whole journey there tells me that, yes, if I'm willing to put in the work and I'm willing to network with people who know what they're doing, I don't think there's a single animal that I couldn't film. If I wanted to find it, I could probably find somebody who knows how to find it, even if I have to pay them. Like, that's an investment in the channel. I'm willing to make that investment. It's more that there are definitely people I would love to collab with, like Jeremy Wade, like David Attenborough. If Steve Irwin was still around, man, I would love to work with Steve Irwin. Honestly, I would say like one day, I don't think it's out of the question that I work with Robert at some point. Steve's son, like, I would love to work with the Irwins in some capacity. Coyote Peterson, like, sure, I make fun of him sometimes for like his bite and sting videos, but I know on good authority people who have worked with him, and he's a great guy. And I would love to work with him in the field and take him out and, show him some cool wildlife, see what he thinks of those things. I'd love to meet his team, like Mark Vins and Mario Aldecoa, and I don't know his last name, but their cameraman Trent. Like, I'd love to meet all of them and work with them in the field. So it's like, it's fun to work with interesting people. It's fun to work with passionate people and knowledgeable people. And especially if they are people whose brands would complement mine to make videos or make a show with those people. Like, I mean, that would be amazing. It's like, the creator in me, not just the wildlife person, the creator in me thinks about like, what are the crossover episodes that would just go so hard? Like if, because I watch a ton of Star Wars and like all these different like, sci-fi and fantasy shows. And it's like, I'm always thinking about what makes these shows so special to me. I'm like, what's the equivalent in what I do? What can I do that would just go that next level of hard for the viewers? Because I think there's something about that. Like there's something satisfying, not just about making the videos, but seeing people just lose their minds when you release something. Like I'm working on, I don't know if it's going to happen. I really don't think it's going to happen. No, but like it's a shot in the dark, but I tried it anyway. I reached out to Sony, who owns the rights for Men at Work, the Men at Work song Down Under. Like I would love to use that in the Australia premiere. I don't think it's going to happen because they haven't gotten back to me, and I messaged them a month ago, but like I'm still holding out hope. And I'm sure it'll probably be like ridiculously expensive when they finally do quote me, if they do quote me. But I'm like, how hard would it go if the opening scene of like an Australia wildlife documentary has that song? Like it's like the most iconic song with like Australian culture and stuff with like in like the 80s. Like just matter like the how I do that thing with like the videos where like I have the location title and it comes towards the screen and like fades into the opening shot. Like how hard would that go? Like that opening, like, it'd be so hard, but I don't know if it'll happen. I might make a director's cut with it and just give it to people who just not monetize it, but make a director's cut with the song. I don't know. We'll see.
Because some of my usual questions used to be like, what do you want the evolution of your brand to be? And I think, you can see how a video creates another one and creates another, and it kind of explodes these ideas in your head. And it's, you're like me, you're constantly seeing, I could do a series on that, I could do that, I could speak to that. Instagram and YouTube become a nightmare for me at times because they constantly give me new people to interview and ideas and promote. And like, for you, it'd be collaborations or animals. And one of my other questions used to always be about how do you stay on top of the education, the research, but you're finding out stuff for your videos, which then promotes you to create interest in the next set of videos. And before you know it, your ideas for a video suddenly explode. And I can see a lot of myself in you about how you approach life. I just wish I had your success. I would love to have you on again because I think I'm just getting
It will happen. Again, once you have the target audience nailed, everything else kind of falls into place. And I used to hear that. I was on your end of things, and I would hear that, and I'm like, nah, that doesn't actually work. If there was ever a magic button to success, it's really getting to know target audience. And like the first step is knowing who the target audience is, and then creating basically blueprints of things that you think that they would enjoy. And what I always say is execute imperfectly and fail forward. It's actually, I think it's a quote from a mentor of mine who actually worked at Video Creators, that channel that taught me about YouTube. I took one of their courses back in 2021, and he was teaching me like, don't be afraid to fail. Like, don't be afraid to like lose a battle, right? We're in the war for the long haul. We don't fail until we give up on the channel. A single video failing, that's fine. Like there's videos I post all the time that flop, and I'm like, I'm so frustrated because it was like so much work into the video, and I thought it was gonna be such a banger, and then it just like goes. I'm like, but the thing is, like, one video is fine. 10 videos failing is fine. The biggest thing is just figuring out, okay, these didn't work, but the target audience that I think I'm targeting, they exist. So what is actually missing from these videos that they're not liking? And like for me, I think it helps that I'm so obsessed with so many different things, like psychology, for example, and behavior. Like I'm studying human behavior as much as I'm studying wildlife, as much as I'm studying YouTube, as much as I'm studying art and writing and cinematography. Like I'm looking at I'm studying my own behavior. Like I have notes, I have journals full of both YouTube notes, like I think I have like probably between all the things I've written on my computer and physically by hand, I probably have over 300 pages of notes of just like observations I've had about YouTube, about myself, about other people's behavior. And I just look for patterns. Like, what are the things that I can latch onto? What can I learn from what I'm observing? And like the bottom line, I think it really just boils down to just being really curious, being obsessively childlike curious, and investigating questions, not being afraid of the answers to questions, and not being afraid to question things that maybe you weren't allowed to question before. That's like the biggest, I think the biggest thing that's led to my success. And like, even if this channel failed, the reason I think I could build another channel and be successful is just being obsessively curious and obsessively questioning everything and finding ways to answer questions. It's just, you just learn a ton. You learn fast, and you're not afraid to test stuff, because you're like, okay, like my entire career isn't riding on this video. This video is just answering a specific question that I have about how my viewers are behaving. And if the data looks like this, it means this. If the data looks like this, it means that. Like, that's the best way I can articulate that, I think. But being curious and just building forward, like some of the guys you've had on for your podcast here, like I did a little bit of background check on you. Some of the guys are like super successful. You had Dr. John Deloney. You had you had Forrest Galante on, like people who I look up to, like, oh man, that dude is successful. And so there's times where I'm like you're reaching out to me, I'm like, oh, I'm not anywhere near as successful as some of these people. But like, I think where my perspective helps, especially your listeners, it's like, I've done some things. Like I have a play button on my wall right there, one of my most prized possessions right there. But it's like, I haven't made it to the point where I'm like fully, I don't have my own like nice house yet. I don't, I'm not debt free. I'm not like making six figures or anything, but it's like I'm on the way and I see the vision. And I think, someone who's in that middle section, I think it is helpful for people to hear. This is how to like approach going from, okay, I've done a little bit of the journey. Here's how to actually look at and strategize the next legs of the journey. But I think like absolutely, like, there's zero reason. Like podcasting is hard. Podcasting is very hard, but there's zero reason why, if you can boil down your target audience and just really, really nail the psychology, there's no reason why you can't be successful.
Thank you. I love that. I mean, I love that you've looked into it, because I always get amazed when people say yes. To me, it's just like, I'm just a random guy, and I can remember having discussions and people are saying, oh, it's one of the best interviews I had, or you asked me questions. I never get a chance to speak about these sorts of things. And I love finding that person, and it could be somebody with 1 million, 15 million subscribers, or it can be somebody with 8,000. And if it's something just clicks about the person, and that's when I seen you, it's just like, yeah, he gets this. I can't, even though it's not usually my normal cup of tea to watch, like, insects and spiders and stuff, 2 minutes in, I was like subscribing. And I know straight away I need to get you on the podcast if that happens. And it's like you're saying about the videos. It's like, if you do one and it doesn't work, you learn. If you do something and it's really great, you learn. You smile, you go do the next video. And it's that part. It's that kind of the journey. It's not the destination, as Aerosmith beautifully put it. And I think that's where you're doing so well. You're changing lives, but you're educating people, you're encouraging your people, you're making a smile on people's faces, you're helping people get through dark days, like their COVID and all these kind of nightmares, but you're also changing the lives of animals, and you should be superbly proud of the work you're doing, and you're just starting. I mean, I'd love to have you on again and do another couple in different areas. And I think it felt like 10 minutes, and it's been 3 hours.
3 hours.
And I would love to do another one. And I'm always wary about using up time with people, but there's so much we could still go into and look. You could do a course just on content creation alone. and people would buy it.
I have thought about that. I actually I was offered a job last September working for vidIQ. I don't know if you know vidIQ or not.
I use their extension thing.
They offered me a job to be a strategist for them because I hired them to do consulting for me. I was like, hey, I just need some help with this, and this, and I like getting a fresh set of eyes to look at my stuff when I'm like trying to work on things and build new series or new strategies. And I'm like, is this working? Am I just totally off? Like, and I was showing one of their strategists like my data setup, and he's like, do you want a job? And I'm like, I mean, so I talked to them. I was like, I'd consider it. And they gave me a formal offer. They were going to have me on. But then I realized the workload was going to be quite a bit because they have a ton of demand right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I can't get an editor on time, I won't be able to work for you because I like the focus is the channel. Like the focus is this. Like I have to do this first. So I ended up rescinding my turning down the declining the job offer because I just wasn't able to find an editor on time. That's where I learned how hard it was going to be to replace myself as an editor, and it's something I'm still struggling to fix. But I mean, I live, breathe, and eat YouTube strategy almost as much as I do wildlife. Like in my little cohort of wildlife creators, I am the strategist. Like I literally have research reports. I have 20-page, multiple of them, 20-page research reports that I release to them every year in a Discord of like, here are my findings on YouTube this year. Here is what's working. Here is what's not working. Here is hard data to support this. Like this year, for example, my biggest lessons were, is consistency actually effective? And the answer is yes and no. Consistency of value, consistency of concepts, like what is the video doing for viewers, but consistency of posting, I don't actually have data to support that's as good as it used to be. And so like I personally, I'm just going to draw back my upload schedule because like I'm wasting energy, I'm burning my wheels, and if anything, I'm churning viewers if I'm posting, too often. And if I'm posting lower quality things to maintain that schedule, viewers will be like, well, this isn't that good, so I'm just not going to watch next week. But if I'm posting twice a month and they're like phenomenal, it's better. And so, everything I do, I'm taking notes, I'm collecting data, and I just at the end of every year, I just publish it like in my wildlife group.
I would love to see that because I think it was Pat Flynn. He was saying Smart Passive Income about how people were saying to him, "We can see one of your videos is rushed, like because you're trying to put too much out. We'd prefer it if you just dialed it back. We're happy to wait to get that." And I love that you can see these observations. I mean, I would pay for that kind of report. And you're giving it away for free.
I could. The thing is, for me, it's like I could paywall it, but it's also like YouTube. The opportunity of YouTube has changed my life so much. It's like, to me, it just feels right to give back to help other people to do it. If that makes sense. Like, no. I would consider building a course, but I don't have the right audience to sell it to. So it's like it would make sense to make a course right now. I have considered launching a second channel teaching YouTube growth. I actually did launch it years and years ago because I was teaching video editing first. But like it has like maybe like 40 subscribers. But it's like I've considered like going back to that channel and like running that on the side and teaching what I've learned and why I've learned it. And the idea does come up once in a while, but the thing is I'm just really, it's like I said earlier, like I have a passion for teaching people things when I learn how to do stuff. And I got good at YouTube and I learned how to do it, and I can pretty much replicate a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. So it's exciting to me, and I want to share that with people who I know it would help. And so like within my wildlife communities, when I'm collaborating, I might not be the most talented presenter. I might not be the most talented snake hunter or spider hunter in my group. Like some people can find stuff a lot better than I can. But it's like it works because what I bring to the table is I can help them, iron out their concepts. I can help them, direct their content strategy so that they can actually have results too and continue to go on trips. For some of them, I'm like, I literally, for Australia, I'm hiring Jack. I'm paying to bring him down to Australia because the contacts we're working with are all his contacts. He has all the venomous snake handling experience that I don't have. He is so much better at a lot of the things that I need to be good at in Australia that I'm like, dude, I'm just going to pay your way in Australia to make sure that I can get the best videos possible. And not only are you being paid, but you also can get your own videos out of it. So I sweeten the deal for him to make sure that he wins, I win, everybody wins. And with content strategy, it's the same thing. Like, I'd be happy to like email you. It might be a little bit like wildlife focused, the one that I have from last year, but I could email you at the end of this, the YouTube report from last year if you want.
That'd be amazing, because a lot of people say to you, oh, why don't you just hire an editor? That'll free up your time. Why don't you hire such and such? And you're like, every social media like buffer to put out social media posts, $200-$300 a year. Every AI creator thing that would do all these videos, snippets and all that for us, it's going to be about another $200-$300. Hosting your website, your domain, it all costs money. And people are just like, oh, but it's only going to, £30 for an editor? And you're like, really? For 15 minutes, like,
I have tried outsourcing editing 3 times now. And all 3, their edits never made it into a final product on a video. Not because they weren't talented editors, but it was like, I found that number one, I need to work on my ability to communicate what I need from an editor in a video. And because my editing process is so asynchronous and so intuitive, it's hard for me to even
put it to
boil
words,
down what I need from them. So it's like hard for me to even make their job easy. And then I've also realized that I'm very fast at editing. I'm very, very fast. So one of my, 15-minute videos might take me 4 hours to edit. And it's like, that sounds like a lot of time, but it's like when I send this to an editor, I had an editor, and she was a very talented storyteller, very talented visual, like probably a better visual storyteller than I am. But it took her 9 hours to edit a segment that took me 90 minutes. And it's like,
it's like discrepancy.
The quality was good, but I'm like, I'm not going to pay somebody hourly to do something in 9 hours that takes me 90 minutes to do. Even if it means I don't have to do that thing, it's like, I am going to just hemorrhage cash hiring an editor to replicate what I can do when I can just do it myself for free. And it's like, that's not the greatest mentality, I know, but like, I'm still working on finding somebody who understands my content well enough that they can, because like the hardest parts that I've been able to communicate is like, when do I, like for an intro, I have the music start before the voiceover starts, but it's like, how do I time that? How do I find the timing for that? And it's like, it's not like a hard cut. It's like, I'm listening to the music and I can actually hear, okay, this is where it sounds natural for the voiceover to start, but that's subjective. That's my personal taste. An editor might not have that taste, or like they might not have the best I can describe it is, you can, if you're drawing something, right, you can trace an image perfectly and it'll come across as the image. Like, you'll be able to tell what they were trying to do. But if that person doesn't understand form, like the 3D form they're trying to draw, they're going to miss subtleties in the line weight and stuff that communicate form. And so that image is going to feel flat. You'll be able to see what it was, but it's going to be flat.
Yeah.
And so like, as like, when I'm like trying to train somebody to edit, it's like, the shot choice for B-roll when I'm presenting an animal or something, it's like, they might have a correct shot, but it's like, there's something that feels off to me because they don't appreciate the animals the same way I do. So when they're selecting shots, there isn't this level of intuition of like, oh, that shot's gonna be so cool right here. But I don't know what the science behind that intuition is, so I don't know how to communicate it to someone when I'm training them that can like turn into results. So it's like, for the most part, I haven't been able to outsource. I might be able to outsource writing or research or something, but even then, it's like all those things are just so fundamental to what I do. It's hard to like extract them fully, and that's where it gets like messy. So it's one of those things that I have to it's one of those things I have to keep executing imperfectly at and failing forward until I get it. And once I get it, it'll be a lot easier. But for now, it's still a challenge, and I still haven't solved it. So
I love that. I love that thinking, that saying to sort of fall forward. And I think that's the thing. It's people, if you don't understand the culture, if you don't understand the end goal or the wish behind it, sometimes it's easier doing it yourself. And you've got to balance that cost to time versus the end product. And a lot of times, too many people buy all these products and all these support services and all that well before they need it. And they lose that authenticity, that kind of thing that makes you successful. I mean, I used vidIQ and all these sort of companies to kind of do it, and I actually found I got lower view rates sometimes on the SEO approved titles that they were suggesting, because I was actually taking out the thing that drew my weird audience to my weird self. And by removing your weirdness, you lose yourself in your videos. And I probably could think of a better way of putting that, but you know what I mean? It's like the people that are attracted to you and your style of videos, but putting other people in, sometimes you actually remove that attracted them in the first place. And it's a difficult kind of balance to get it right. So I could spend thousands of pounds on you helping me build my channel. I think you could do such a great job. What would you want people listening to take from this? Before we can do a round two and get into the deep dives in each of the areas, different kinds, go about the Australia trip and things like that, what would you want people to take from this as a kind of a message? It could be anything and everything we've covered today.
Just be curious is the biggest thing. Like all of whether it's the wildlife stuff, whether it's the YouTube business stuff, like the biggest, the magic button that has helped me through all the things is just being really, really curious. Even figuring out target audience, right? That's what I call the magic button to YouTube success. Like all of it, just ask questions in your life, ask questions about yourself, get to know yourself really well. And just be curious about everything around you, and the world just gets bigger. I mean, when I say at the end of every video, I end every video with, don't forget to get outside and find your own adventure. And what I mean by that is just be curious. Just like an adventure doesn't have to be doing what I do and going out and wrangling rattlesnakes. Like an adventure is just going out, asking questions about your surroundings and learning something new.
No,
that is the like purest form of what an adventure is. Because your life gets more interesting. Your life gets more open and just gets bigger when you see things and approach it with curiosity. And so whether you are interested in learning more about wildlife, conservation, YouTube, or even something that we didn't discuss at all in this podcast, let's say you want to learn more about trumpets. I don't know, it's just random, but anything you want to learn about, anything that you are curious about, just lean into that curiosity and it will take you places you couldn't even imagine.
Because that's why when you said curiosity a few times, I've looked off to the right because I've got a whiteboard up there, and I interviewed Ruben Rojas, a beautiful artist, and he creates all these kind of like, he usually takes love as a kind of main message, but creates different kind of murals and kind of like expressive art around concepts of things. And one of them is about love. And I said to him, well, that's your one word, because that's what you talked about, was creating content and helping improve the world through love, changing the world through love. And I said to him, well, what word would you say from me? And he said, curiosity. You seem to have a deep, genuine curiosity in people. And I was like, whoa. And when you saying curiosity again, that kind of just hit home again of like, there is definitely something in that about finding that thing that we're passionate in life. And you will find your 10, 20, 30, 40, a million people army who want to follow that as well, who are interested in that. And there's so many people who could be great, who are just sitting just now going, but. And I think hearing your story will have inspired so many people to finally take that chance and fall forward and just keep trying and keep pushing and keep going. And I think that's a beautiful message, and your videos are amazing. It's even
I
if it's
appreciate it.
something to have a cup of tea with, to watch while you're on your lunch break, or to change your understanding about the world, conservation, or handling something, or understanding an animal, that means your kids aren't afraid of animals. Just, you helping so many people. How can we follow along on this journey? How can we follow you on social media? How can we, I think you mentioned a Discord that you were going to create. How can we follow along with the next evolution of your brand?
So I'm hello again. So I'm actually currently terrible at social media. I have an Instagram that I rarely ever use. I have a TikTok that I've posted to once. But primarily my YouTube channel is My Wild Backyard over on YouTube. And I'll probably make another community post with the Discord link. I definitely have in my community tab, there are posts that have links to my Discord. The Discord's great. Lots of people hang out there. Lots of really deep philosophical and all kinds of there's just interesting people in there. So like we have all kinds of cool conversations, and I post lots of like sneak peeks and stuff to like what animals I'm searching for, what creatures I'm finding, what areas I'm exploring, all those kind of things. I post all in there. So if you want to follow the journey, Discord is the best place to get real-time updates. If you want to see the full story of everything and like have it play out on screen, the YouTube channel is the place to go.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.